I just rewatched every episode of My Hero Academia and recapped each season. In this video, I will not only be slapping all 8 of these videos together, but I'll be ranking them. I forgot to do that. On the off chance you've seen all 8 vids, I appreciate it, but in this vid, I will be reacting to comments and adding things I left out in the original recaps. Because in these 8, I focused on one character or highlights, so I ended up cutting out a lot of the fat. Anyways, My Hero Academia recapped without the bullshit. Season 1 of My Hero Academia has so many gems. It was such a good watch, but during my rewatch of this season, one thing stood out to me. It's Bakugo. This motherfucker is an irredeemable asshole. Let me tell you something. Honestly, he is literally the main antagonist for most of the season, and is honestly the best antagonist of season 1. Like, literally frame 1. Opening scene of the show, he's bullying a kid, and Deku, he's like, bro, he's like, Kachan, you're taking it too far.
Why are you being so mean? You're making him cry, Kachan.
And Bakugo's response to his childhood friend, and I use the term friend very loosely, his response to his childhood friend saying, Bakugo, you're taking it too far, stop bullying this kid, is to just jump Deku. Like, mind you, these niggas are in like 4th grade. So fast forward, and they're in whatever the Japanese equivalent of 8th grade is, and Bakugo is bullying Midoriya again. And I'm like, god damn, give him a break, dog. It's been like 4 straight years. He then, and I'm paraphrasing here, but this is no exaggeration, he tells Deku that he's a quirkless loser and he's better off doing somersaults off the top floor.
You know, if you really want to be a hero that badly, there actually might be another way. Just pray that you'll be born with a quirk in your next life and take a swan dive off the roof of the building.
We aren't even 5 episodes in the series and he's already making KYS jokes. Absolute menace. And I googled it. He is literally the definition of a menace. Fast forward, Deku gets in the UA and we get this scene of him holding Deku up by whatever the front collar is called, and he's like, bro, how the fuck did you get here? He then referenced the time he told Deku if he catches him stepping foot, or much less even applying to UA, he's gonna stomp a mud hole in his ass. And the Deku finally stands up for himself here, and I'm like, yeah! Albeit he kind of got hoed. Anyways, next we get into the 2v2s, and basically all they have to do is either capture the heroes or stall them for a little over 10 minutes. Ida attempts to plan defense tactics, and Bakugo basically says, Saibao. Oh, actually, some of y'all probably don't know what SYBAU means. Let me try this again. Bakugo basically says, shut your bitch ass up, holler at me if you see Uraraka, I got Deku, and immediately just starts blowing shit up. And Bakugo is so locked in, you can almost see those meme red eyes coming through. I mean, he's so locked in on Deku, he doesn't even acknowledge that Uraraka exists. I'm surprised they didn't jump him. Anyways, so later in the battle, Bakugo is like, oh, this nigga think he knows something, and just starts mixing shit. He unlocks mid-air maneuvering and gives Deku a bike shot. Only one, because unlike the fan art that y'all be making, Kachan don't do that gay shit. He then, and this was funny as hell, gears up a tactical fucking nuke. And Alma is like, young Bakugo, don't shoot that. You could kill someone. And Bakugo says,
He'll be fine as long as he dodges!
menace. Straight menace. So after putting the pause on Deku, he actually loses the match, and we're gonna skip over that because that's gonna be in the big video, okay? And the funny part about it is, despite being number 1 after the entrance exams, 3rd in physical texting, really, nigga? Despite being number 1 in entrance exams, 3rd in physical testing, he loses 1 search and destroy match and immediately just grabs his shit and dips. Like, bro was halfway off campus by the time the episode was over. Everybody was in class just chatting. Bakugo was like, fuck you niggas, I'm going. I was rolling, but this is where it gets good, because throughout the episode there's multiple times where Bakugo takes like I can't say subtle. Bakugo makes like these subtle improvement leaps. 3 obvious ones that I saw on the second watch: changing his fighting style mid-fight after Deku says, I know how you fight. I'm gonna beat you. 2 was acknowledging that the way he went about the search and destroy match was dumb. And 3, recognizing that the talent gap is not as big as he thought. So yeah, best character in season 1 of My Hero Academia is definitely Bakugo. A close second is Deku. I think they would be 1A, 1B. It's just some people don't give it to the main character just because the show is about the main character, therefore he's going to get the most screen time to be the best character type shit, you know. It's kind of like a bang for your buck type deal, you know. And an honorable mention is All Might, which, I mean, you can really argue with a couple people just because, like, All Might also gets like the most screen time outside of like Aozawa or something, maybe Uraraka, but Uraraka doesn't really do much in this season. Something I didn't elaborate on is the USJ Attack, and the star of the episode is All Might. You ever play a game where you have to win a battle with your HP depleting? That's exactly the scenario for All Might. Kurogiri made it interesting for a little bit, but All Might eliminated this Nomu in record time. Bro was hitting Brawlhalla moves on his ass. Rest in peace to Brawlhalla, the battle royale, not this scared the League of Villains into retreating. Now, UA takes the League very seriously after this, and because of that, the League of Villains is played up like a threat, which they are, but in hindsight, the USJ Attack was an overwhelming loss for the League of Villains. They attempted to assassinate All Might, who wasn't there, so the secondary objective was to kill the students until he arrives. Besides Attack on Titan, we know students have plot armor, so we will change kill to hold hostage. Well, yeah, the henchmen get flawlessly cleared so bad that some of the students jump in to actually foil the assassination attempt, and then obviously All Might Brawlhalla Batista bombed the Nomu. To be fair, Kurogiri did incapacitate 13, but she's the only real injury from the battle. Anyways, there's no bad tier on this list, but because I think MHA is I really just said MHA out loud. Although I think My Hero Academia is a good watch no matter what, some seasons are better than others. But without a doubt, season 1 gets S tier. At times it's hard to watch, but that's a compliment because they do a good job of showing how pathetic Deku is in the early timeline. And it's, you know, it's easy to root for him. And hearing you too can become a hero as a struggling YouTuber is so motivational. Then there's Bakugo, who's phenomenal for reasons already stated. I really need to rate his video, by the way. If you said season 1 is your favorite, I can't argue with you, but if the show is worth its weight in gold, season 1 is the foundation and it will only get better from here. Try this again. So I'm rewatching the entirety of My Hero Academia for a project video, and I just finished season 2 and something about it stood out to me. The sports festival. The first 3 seasons of My Hero Academia are absolute peak. Of course, the sports festival has its pros and cons, but hey, here's what makes it a good watch. Fast forward, it's a little bit before the festival starts, and all the other classes are huddled around Class 1A. Eventually, Bakugo is like, move it extras, and the best part about this is 90 to 99% of people on the screen right now are literal extras or will get minuscule screen time for the rest of the show. So not only was Bakugo being an asshole, but he was 100% correct. And I agree with him, bro. Get the fuck out of the way. So now the festival is beginning, and for some god-forsaken reason, they choose Katsuki Bakugo to do the pregame speech. Bro telling everyone I'm gonna win and then giving the students and crowd a thumbs down? Absolutely diabolical, bro. At this point, Bakugo is undeniably the best character in the show. Despite his arrogance, we get probably the closest thing to a prodigy in the show. The debut of Shoto Todoroki. Todoroki is uninteresting verbally, but his actions are kinda nice, at least for what we're going to talk about here. So he kicks off the event by presumably freezing everyone and hauling ass. A lot of the students evade the ice, but more of them are impaired by it. Then he obliterates a 0-point villain, right? The 0-point Titans from the entrance exams, just to show he means business. But if I remember correctly, Bakugo also deletes one of them out of pettiness, and then, I mean, this gets downplayed, or both of those get downplayed, because Yaoyorozu, the neglected, destroys 3 of them with a fucking cannon. But moving on, besides that, a majority of the obstacle course isn't noteworthy until the end. So Bakugo is pissed about having to split screen time with Nepo baby Todoroki, and much less the extras they dunked on, so he tries to slime Todoroki Todoroki. Obviously it doesn't work, but it slows both of them down enough to let Deku reach the minefield. Deku then uses the octane grenade trick, alright, because he's tapped in like that, and wins the obstacle course. In case I forget to mention in the project vid, up until the finals, Deku is doing this virtually quirkless, as he has to save it for like crucial moments, right? You've seen the show, you know what I mean. Also, Asui placing 13th in a movement contest is insane. Episode 18 is where things start to get interesting. They end up having to do a 3-legged horse race, which honestly is a bad way to describe it. Basically it's a chariot competition. It's chariot jousting for headbands, but the chariot is your classmates. You'll fucking see it. This gets interesting because Deku is in an awkward position because this is another event that he will have to do almost entirely quirkless, and I actually think he does the event entirely quirkless. Fortunately for him, he can't win this event like he did the last one by being underhanded and stealthy, right? Because his win in the previous event made him the #1 target for this event. Now, not because people thinks he's special, but after that event, if you haven't seen the show, everyone was given headbands, kind of like Afro Samurai, right? And basically the headband is worth a point value, and Midoriya gets a reasonable, very fair 1 million point headband. This headband is worth more than every other headband in the arena combined, and I did a little bit of math, might be slightly off, but I think there's around 80 other headbands in this arena, assuming everyone has a team of 5. So with that information, there's a multitude of reasons why a lot of people don't want to team with him, and even more want to rob him. So this gets interesting because it's obviously Deku's show, but Bakugo is undoubtedly the best or most interesting character from a talent and entertainment standpoint by far. But during this festival, Todoroki really starts to shine and starts getting pushed as a big 3 candidate, for lack of a better word. So the event starts and Deku immediately pulls evasive maneuvers. Unfortunately, off rip, his team suffers a mobility nerf due to Mineta. And I'm just like, I'm pointing this out because Mineta will never contribute anything positive to the story of My Hero Academia ever again. Besides that, Bakugo immediately goes for the gold, right? But unfortunately for him, Dark Shadow blocks his attack. And notice how this wasn't a grab attempt. He was trying to blow Midoriya's head smooth off. So as Bakugo is falling back to the earth, a series of characters, or several teams, approach Midoriya, including the side character of the arc, Todoroki. Kaminari and Todoroki use a combination attack to freeze everyone chasing Deku besides themselves, obviously. Shoto basically robs everyone within a reasonable vicinity of him and closes the distance a little bit with Midoriya's team. Tokiomi resets the fight, but nonetheless they end up getting cornered once again. We then cut to Bakugo getting robbed and bullied.
Being attacked by that sludge villain. You'll have to tell me about it sometime. It must be strange to always find yourself in the role of the victim.
Yeah, you know Bakugo ain't gonna let that slide.
There's no way out of this one. You're done.
He immediately presses the issue with his infamous right hand hook, and it gets weaved. And if you think that pissed him off, Mimic Tier here pets Kirishima like a cat, then uses Kirishima's quirk to block Bakugo's counterattack. And I know that looks sexy and all, but there's a reason why he's in Class B and not A. Speaking of people being in Class B and not 1A, I don't know how the fuck Mineta, Animal Planet, Acidity, and Belly Laser made it in the Class 1A. Moving on, Deku is exploiting Todoroki's left side, which is a phenomenal setup. You know, I wonder what happens. Does Deku turn the tables and use teamwork to beat the super talented prodigy Todoroki and teach him if you want to play in the big leagues, you gotta go all out? Or does Todoroki have to choose between his silly grudge and victory? Does he find a way to Ida ults cause fuck main characters? So Ida gets them a freebie, but at the cost of his speed advantage. It's alright. Not how we planned it, but the tables have indeed turned. Deku can either chase, you know what the fuck he does. He wants that mill headband back. You're probably wondering, while they're over here boxing, what is Bakugo doing? No? Well, too damn bad. Bakugo goes for the throat, again and gets blocked by a thick pane of glass. And despite many forms of glass being heat resistant, Bakugo punches right through it and robs Kakashi Jr.
Nah, that's not enough.
Bakugo literally starts beating Kirishima across the head while yelling to catch up to these dingleberries, right? Bakugo then uses science, yes, science or physics, same thing, to guard break Mimic and rob his points back. I don't know why I capitalized we then cut back to Deku versus Todoroki, and he uses the wind pressure from One For All to guard break Todoroki in the politest way possible. He uses this opportunity to steal the 1 mil headband back, or what we thought was the 1 mil headband. Yeah, big lapse of judgment to not grab as many, headbands as possible, but luckily for Deku, he's the main character and Tokiyomi saves his ass. And for character of the arc Todoroki, instead of celebrating the win or realizing he just lost a 1v1 and put his team in a catastrophic position over a grudge that has nothing to do with them, he's sulking because he used his fire for 3 seconds as a reflex. Anyways, 1v1 tournament. Peak might be a slight overstatement, but it was good nonetheless. Alright, after kicking off with literally the only other hand-to-hand fighter quitting because of pride, he will never see the spotlight again. I just wanted to let y'all know that. So we get Deku versus Hive Mind over here, and saving the rant for another time, Deku hip tosses the shit out of him for an easy dub. The Vestiges did bail him out of a ring out, but Todoroki has the box elbow Spider-Man, and despite being the #1 seed, he gets grabbed by Tape Boy, and I mean he panic knifes him, and by panic knife I mean literally throwing an ice tower at him. Kaminari is an avid believer of equal rights, and he shoots 1 million volts of death lightning at this poor tree hugger here. Unfortunately for him, her vines are immune to electric attacks, and she just restrains him with this insane grab. And then let me check my notes for what happens next. Ida is a fraud, bro. Alright, bro is getting absolutely exploited and diddled by Hatsune, okay? If you watch the animated season of Vigilantes, you realize that his brother is a fraud too. The whole Ingenium bloodline thus far are scrubs. I don't know if y'all seen that meme that goes, you get captured and you hear Fang over Fang in the distance, and it's just people accepting the fact that they gonna die. From all but 2 or 3 scenes, maybe 5 scenes out of 7 seasons, if you hear anything Ingenium related, brother, you're cooked. My bad. Ida gets so much shit for me, and I want to lie and say I don't know why, but I genuinely don't understand why he's a hero, or much less a character after the Stain arc. Moving on, Acidity uppercuts the absolute shit out of Aoyama, and I'm not gonna lie, he deserved it. I'm gonna keep it a beam with you. Momo proves there's a difference between being educated and being smart, as she gets absolutely bullied by Tokiyomi. She didn't stand a chance, but given her background, you'd expect it to be more of a fight. Now, the legendary fight. And one thing I like about this is Uraraka immediately gets to business and starts pressing Bakugo. And I want you to appreciate this, because this is the extremely rare occasion that Bakugo doesn't immediately rush his opponent, alright? So despite living in Japan, Bakugo is very familiar with the stand your ground law, because he does not move an inch when he starts blowing shit up, okay? One thing I love about this fight is Uraraka does not give a fuck. She tanks these blows and keeps rushing over and over and over, just sheer persistence. But eventually some things must come to an end. Actually, all things must come to an end. Anyways, so when the fight started, Uraraka immediately gets low, okay? To keep it a beam with you, I thought this was purely aesthetic, like the Naruto run, right? But if you were smarter than me, you probably thought she was making herself a smaller target. But no, while that might have been part of the equation, she was actually forcing Bakugo to hit the stadium. Then it happens. She puts her hands together, and just like Frieza, Bakugo is like, the fuck are you doing? Then he sees a second metaphorical sun reflecting off of the metaphorical sea when Uraraka drops 300 kilograms of concrete shards at him. Pause. I just want you to appreciate the flawless execution of this misdirection and pincer. Now, under normal circumstances, Bakugo has 2 choices. Both of them lead to defeat. But before I unpause, there's one major flaw in the scenario. Bakugo isn't normal. Yeah, so Uraraka loses the fight, but much like Vietnam, nobody gives a fuck because she made it farther than we expected, you know what I'm saying? And anyone else in this tournament. Nevertheless, I also want to mention Uraraka, even though she's dilapidated and withered, Bakugo was still hesitant and borderline scared to attack her. And given how Bakugo interacts with literally everyone else, this is mad respect. Todoroki tries to one-shot Deku, but he uses the air pressure for one for all to block it. Todoroki tried it again and gets the same result. Guess what? You're not gonna believe this. Todoroki tries again and gets the same result. So after breaking all the real fingers in his hand to stop the ice prison, Deku gets rushed by Todoroki. Todoroki does this super exaggerated, comically telegraphed Superman punch and misses. He follows this up with an ice spear that's totally not cheesy at all. Deku makes his first mistake when he absolutely demolishes this attack with a super smash. The mistake being he sacrificed the arm opposite of the fingers he just broke. By some miracle, Todoroki survives this, and I want you to pay attention to the screen because I'm going to replay it again. He survives this. Deku calls him out. Todoroki tries to act cool, but he's literally shivering, okay? Todoroki tries to end the fight, but Deku force pushes him just far enough for you to think there's consequences to doing the same thing over and over again. But after this, Deku is like, now I'm in that mode. Todoroki sprints at Deku. He then does a hop to close the distance. Deku immediately sends a 5% all for one jab straight to the stomach. And after this, they just start swinging. And by them, I mean Deku, because I'm not going to lie to you, Todoroki is absolutely overwhelmed, alright? Anyways, now, I want to remind you, Deku has a broken hand and a broken arm. And Todoroki is stuck dodging. Anyways, Deku is like, fuck everything, and uses his cheek to shoot an all-for-one blast at Todoroki. He follows that up by headbutting the absolute shit out of him. And at this point, he should have a bruised lung at bare minimum. Deku is working this man. So Deku starts beating memories into his head. Like, you know what I'm saying? After another 5% straight to the chest, you know what I'm saying? He starts getting flashbacks, you know what I'm saying? I just want you to know, Todoroki is supposed to be a good close quarters fighter, and he's getting worked, okay? Deku and Todoroki go for the decisive strike, and the most interesting part about it is Midnight has to rip her clothes off to activate her quirk. Deku and Todoroki absolutely eviscerate the stadium. Deku gets ringed out. Great fight, honestly top 10 in the show, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be giving Todoroki shit for this in a different video. Oh shit, I forgot, Todoroki fights Ida, and honestly, Ida's best showing, but he ends up in an ice prison, alright? Bakugo versus Tokiomi, you already know. Bakugo immediately presses the issue, alright? Forces Dark Shadow to solo him in the air.
It don't work.
Massive fire punch. Sorry, Bird Boy fans. It's me. I'm Bird Boy fan. Bakugo realizes Dark Shadow is sensitive to light, and it was over from there. So Bakugo lands and immediately uses the brightest explosion he can muster. And when the dust clears, he has Tokiomi by the beak! He doesn't even use his beak! You know what I'm saying? Bakugo, that's fucked up. He didn't even have to restrain him like that. Now, here we are. The final battle. The climax of the arc, right? Katsuki Bakugo versus Shoto Todoroki in a win by KO, ring out, or restraining situation, right? Should be madly entertaining. Should just be metaphorical bullets, alright, baptism by fire type of shit, right? Todoroki tries to instantly ring out Bakugo. It doesn't work whatsoever because Bakugo is literally exploding his way out of the ice mountain. Todoroki does his lunge attack that gets weaved. Bakugo palms Todoroki like a basketball and throws him across the arena. And this is how you know Bakugo wants blood, because his quirk is in his hands. He could have blew his shit smooth off, but he was like, nah, twin, I gotta enjoy this. Anyways, Kacchan gets over aggressive, right? Todoroki grabs him with his left hand. So instead of burning Bakugo, he just redirects him. At this point, he just starts shutting down, you know, and put himself in catastrophic danger when Bakugo turns himself into a literal artillery shell. So Bakugo does what he does. He literally knocks Todoroki out. And I'm not gonna lie, if Deku gets threatened and told that if he doesn't master his quirk and keeps breaking his bone, he's gonna be permanently disabled, right? Todoroki has some sort of consequence for standing there and taking a heat round to the face!
You could put my ball.
As you heard, I cut the video short for editing reasons. As an example, this is what my project looks like when it starts, and this is what it looks like at the end. Anyways, what I didn't mention about season 2 is Stain in the exams. Starting with Stain. Stain appears and is immediately the superior antagonist at this point in the timeline, and that's not a slight against Shigaraki. Stain is just further along in his development at the point in time when he arrives. Nonetheless, he joins the League of Villains, but given his first interaction with the Love, yeah, it makes it very clear what the power dynamic is. So I think it's fair to say it's a confederation at best. Shigaraki slander aside, Stain appears for roughly 3 episodes or so, and the highlight is when he gets jumped by Ida, Todoroki, and Deku. This ends with Ida landing a fatal blow on Stain. Before presumably bleeding out, he saves Deku from a Nomu and gives his famous speech about fake heroes. With hindsight, we know he survives, but for the sake of the video, we will consider him dead. Summarizing the opinion, since there's not much to recap about Stain, I think we could have gotten more out of this arc. Although Ida gets redemption of landing the blow that kills Stain, he gets nothing out of it because the police immediately cover it up. Trust me, I get it, but if the students get nothing out of killing Stain, why not have Endeavor do it? Pivoting to Shigaraki, just spitballing here, I would have liked to see Shigaraki get his feet wet. Here, I mean, I don't know why I paused on here. I would have liked to see Shigaraki get his feet wet here. Now, he's allegedly still injured, but Stain's speech gets a lot of clout, and this alone gets the League of Villains to grow. And to summarize what I'm trying to say, I kind of want it both ways. Shigaraki's jealousy of Stain motivates him to take the game seriously, yet he spends 4 seasons twiddling his thumbs. So it's a mix of wanting him to earn the clout himself, or make something of the head start Stain earned him rather than letting the opportunities come to him. To clarify, in case that was a little confusing, I wanted Shigaraki to actually do something in season 2 because he gets a bunch of new members at the end of the season because of what Stain did, not because of any feat of his own. And on the second hand, I would have liked him to actually do something with the clout that Stain got him, because he spends the rest of the season actually just letting things come to him. It's a big plot point, I don't want to rant about it, but for the most part, Shigaraki just kind of stands around until the heroes attack him. On a more positive note, the teacher-student battles. Most of them are character development, but according to my notes, Asui is stated to have no clear weaknesses. She carries Tsukuyomi to a victory against Ectoplasm, and while I have a strong love for Asui and Asui cosplayers, her weaknesses are one-on-one combat, and due to her player build, she lacks strength. So if they meant like individually, that teacher is dog water, but in a team setting, I can agree that Asui is a well-rounded player whose only weakness is cold temperatures and being singled out. I also have it written down that Uraraka gets within melee distance of 13 and packs her up. I just want you to know that off the top of my head, Bakugo is the only person to beat Uraraka in a fight. Then it ends with one of the best fights in the entire show, which is crazy. All Might versus Deku and Bakugo. A phenomenal watch, plus is one of the few real fights in the series, and one of many clear reminders of the power gap between the teachers and students, which, to add an opinion on that, I really enjoy seeing that power dynamic because it doesn't really play out against the villains, even though the power gap between the heroes and the villains is like tears away. Anyways, first round of comments. This guy says, and I'm paraphrasing, if Todoroki used fire in the Bakugo fight, he would have won. Absolutely not. Todoroki's only chance is to bait Bakugo into quirk jousting, or just to instantly nuke him. Outside of that, Bakugo just woefully outclasses him being Todoroki. They never fight again, but it's shown time and time again, Bakugo is just a better overall hero from a physical standpoint. We don't even have to look forward to the many times Todoroki is exploited in battle. The sports festival itself has all the evidence you need. Bakugo defeats Monoma despite not being able to just bull rush him like he does everyone else. Bakugo beats Uraraka by keeping distance and using his range advantage. He defeats Tsukuyomi by feeling him out, finding Dark Shadow's weakness, and exploiting it for an easy win. He beats Kirishima by tiring him out. I didn't pronounce tiring. He beats Kirishima by tiring him out and then oversaturating him with overwhelming force. Time and time again, Bakugo is challenged and finds a new lane to victory, showing adaptability. But Todoroki loses the Obstacle Corse because he couldn't deal with Bakugo in a timely manner. He's stalemated by Deku in a Chariot Battle and would have lost if it wasn't for Ida, or actually, Ida couldn't even save his incompetency there. He was actually bailed out by the fact that despite grabbing 4 or 5 headbands, Deku and Tsukuyomi just so happened to miss the $1 billion, $10 million headband. He's grabbed by Sero and had to rely on a nuke to win that one. Deku slaps Todoroki up so bad he gets flashbacks. He wins that with quirk jousting. Ida drop kicks him and is literally carrying him out of bounds before Todoroki freezes his engines. And last and not least, he's outmatched by Bakugo and just gives up. So Todoroki gets by off nuking people, and the fact Endeavor abused him so bad he's just immune to physical attacks. Bakugo, on the other hand, is just pure dominance. Is Todoroki's quirk better? Yes. And you can have a hypothetical dick measuring contest all day about it, but in a real debate about fictional characters, Bakugo clears against Todoroki. I forgot to add that I stated in the beginning that the only chance Todoroki has in beating Bakugo is to get in a quirk jousting match, which literally happens, and for some reason the show thought it wasn't even relevant to actually have the quirk jousting match, and Bakugo wins overwhelmingly. He knocks the kid out. So I'm not gonna lie to you, when it comes to things like that, like these tournaments, I feel like it's kind of like the Deadliest Warrior scenario where they, air quotes, run thousands of simulations to figure out who wins, and then they just show you the most entertaining battle out of those thousands of simulations. That's kind of what my theory about the 1v1 tournament is, that they ran this over and over again thinking about who would win these fights, and then they found out what is the most entertaining way to make this fight possible. Isn't the best logic to follow, but it is a good theory, and if we're running with that theory, headcanon says that they thought of a fight between Todoroki and Deku. They thought of a fight between Todoroki and Bakugo and realized that the power gap was so one-sided that it needed to not be a fight whatsoever to preserve people's opinions of Todoroki. On normal circumstances, I would cut that hot take out, but actually I'm gonna leave that in there just to see how people react to it. So yeah, Bakugo clears, and speaking of clearing, as the story expands, there's more to nitpick, but in totality, season 2 gets peak tier. This is My Hero Academia at its best. I like the fact that the Sports and Festival has winners and losers. They also sprinkled in a little villain action to raise the stakes and things of that nature, and then it was right back to the training arcs. And personally, the training arcs are my favorite. Imagine you're 3 seasons into a show, plot just getting off the ground for real. The world building is starting to make sense, things are clicking together, then boom, like every good anime on Netflix, gone. Or like me at third base, it ends prematurely.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
Now in this video, we're going to be talking about one of the most slept on sequences of the My Hero story, the Bakugo Retrieval arc. And I want to focus on All Might, but he's one of the few trump card characters that isn't the main protagonist or antagonist, so like his appearances are few and fleeting to keep up like his mystique and whatnot. But anyways, you saw the title sequence, so in order for Bakugo to be retrieved, he first has to be taken. So the Jits are going to training camp, and the thing that stood out to me was,
Your feline fantasies are here.
y'all not ready for my opinion on furries, and that's cool. That's grown folks business. Less competition. Huh? Now, in all seriousness, Class 1A starts their air quotes camp by fighting mud monsters, and that's pretty much all the screen time they're getting in this video, because after a long day of exercise and training, the League of Villains starts their attack. This kicks off with Deku versus the Tree Sentinel. Now Deku is getting a dedicated vid, so we're gonna skip the details and just say that muscle up here gets cooked by the power of self-preservation and pushing beyond your limits. Some would say plus ultra. So, for the sake of the video, the real attack begins when Dabi sets the forest on fire alongside this dude filling the forest with tear gas. The mud furry gets knocked out, and the rest of the first squad fight the League of Villain grunts. Dabi is looking for a certain someone and stumbles upon Aizawa, who he sneak attacks.
Looks like your concern has you distracted, Eraser. Blood!
Mind you, he has the upper hand in this fight, and this is what happens to him.
Not so fast. What do you want and where are your friends hiding?
Insta-grabbed, knee to the face, mounted, elbow broken, Aizawa put belt to ass. Alright, belt to ass so quickly you saw the whole thing. Luckily for the League, this was just a clone. And unluckily for them, Aizawa gives the classes as a whole permission to be ass. And the first victim of the League of Villains speedrun is DJ Mustard. Kendo is like, oh, you use this gas to see? Check this out. Just start swatting shit, threw his whole equilibrium off, okay? While he's discombobulated, Tetsu ×4 lands the Taco Bell Hook 9000 on him. Okay? Put him in the dirt. Dark Shadow then all but executes Toothless twice. Toga pins Froppy to a tree, and I'm like, damn. It's always my favorite characters. But Uraraka busts out the trees like the Kool-Aid man, right? Weaves her first attack, grabs her by the hand and neck before slamming her shit. And I want to brag about Uraraka coming out and putting belt to ass again. But Toga is blushing.
Is this nigga serious?
Goo Gaga finna bust.
Anyways, Compress kidnaps a weakened Tokiyomi and somehow quietly gets Bakugo as well, and I have no idea how he pulled this off, but nonetheless, Dabi absolutely decimates a wall in an attempt to cause collateral damage. He loads up another fire attack, but before he can figure out what to do with that fire, he gets smacked into a wall so fast, the ember of his fires are still in frame. Okay, Dabi got smacked into a wall so quick his fire didn't even dissipate. Dabi did get to talk a little shit before Aizawa stomps a mud hole in his ass, and that's not me being funny. He's literally stomped into a puddle of mud because this is also a clone. The real Dabi meets up with the most important of the goofy goobers before they get a visitor.
What's this?
Or several for that matter. Now, this entire sequence is purely cinematic and doesn't hold weight except for Bailey Laser shooting Compress in the face. I don't know why I said Belly like that. Yama shoots Compress in the face, which leads to Tokiyomi being saved. Unfortunately, the League does get away with Bakugo. Speaking of Bakugo, while in captivity, the highlights are Bakugo giving Shigaraki a KYS sticker before decking Shigaraki in the face. The funny part about Bakugo being captured is that it's heavily implied that this isn't a power scaling issue. The only reason Bakugo can't escape or win this fight is because, well, he's outnumbered in a very small space. Fortunately for Bakugo, since he's been captured, the heroes have been preparing for this spin back every hour on the hour, and All Might absolutely disintegrates a wall. And the crazy part about it is Spinner is still conscious. Now, I mean, maybe he held back a little bit. Then K-Wood nabs all 7 villains in one attack. All Might then tells Shigaraki that there are literal Disney villains that would have survived longer than you have. Brother, you have only like 20 minutes of in-person screen time, and you're basically hogtied on the floor, defeated not by the overpowered injured nigga who can only use his superpowers 30 minutes a day, but no, by a sentient fucking tree. All Might didn't know that, like the Steelers locker room, he's secretly being live streamed. So All For One takes the controller and is like, I'm the real villain here, and just starts warping niggas. Okay, All Might is like, DLC already? He tries to save Bakugo but fails, and then All Might sums up my entire life between 2018 and now with one phrase. No! They didn't beat the dog shit out of some Nomu. All Might literally throws 3 of them indiscriminately out the house in random directions, but it's not over. All Might immediately tracks them down, them being the League of Villains and All For One, and after a brief period of time holding back so he doesn't injure Bakugo, Deku, Ida, Todoroki, and Kirishima save Bakugo, and at this point, All Might is like, I'm in that. So Toshidori, is it Toshidori or Toshinori? Anyways, so Toshinori then knocks Gran Torino out. And it sounds weird, but All For One cruelly warps Torino to himself so he would get punched in the face by All Might. All For One attempts a grab attack, but
Continue. It's over. I won't let it.
All Might then punches All For One so hard that his helmet breaks and then power drives him into the ground. That's it. Show over. The entire antagonist group just got speed ran by the pro heroes.
But wait, there's more.
All For One survives, and despite being past his time limit, All Might goes plus ultra one last time when he uses the vestiges and last ounces of One For All to match All For One's punch and sacrifice an arm. Then he transferred the power to the left, right? Socks the shit out of All For One, then transfers it back to his broken right arm, then sends a plus ultra Kamehameha times 1000 double decker Taco Bell BAM to All For One's face, slamming him to the earth, slamming him into the earth, okay, knocking him out instantly. He then strikes one last pose for the ladies watching, you know what I'm saying? That's it. Show over, for real. Or at least it would have been if All For One didn't warp the League of Bums away before this fight started. And this one scene led to 5 more seasons of My Hero Academia. That is, like, isn't that insane? Anyways, the heroes as a whole went down 2-0, right? And proceeded to flawlessly run the table just to get told, nah, you gotta do that shit again. And the crazy part is, they end up doing it again and get the same result. Get told, yeah, you gotta do it a 3rd time. Absolutely insane. This is followed by the Shiketsu revealed. They play laser tag dodgeball, and from a recap standpoint, it isn't that important. Toga appears to harass Deku but leaves before doing any real damage. Yaoyorozu takes on the supercomputer. This is a feat of battle IQ. I have no opinion on it. Sorry, Yo-Yo fans. Todoroki fights the Power Rangers. I wrote down that he wins, but I didn't know any details of the fight. He then has an ego off with Wind City, leading to them both failing the exam, which Bakugo fails the exam because he's rude, which is fair, but you don't have to be nice if you're in the line of heroism he's aiming for. Anyways, Bakugo follows this up by challenging Deku to a fight. There's a lot of reasons behind this fight, but on the main stage is survival's guilt, jealousy, and being extremely competitive. Anyways, Bakugo wins this fight, and it's a dope moment between All Might, Deku, and Bakugo. Aizawa gets involved, but my opinion of him is sinking by the day. In my opinion, the first 3 seasons of My Hero Academia are my favorite. There's just so much character growth, action, and bonding. There's the illusion of consequences. There's conflict that actually means something. Seasons 1 through 3 have aura, and with all that glazing, Season 3 earns peak tier behind Season 2, which I believe is marginally better. Notable Season 3 comments. I'm paraphrasing in all of these, but the verbatim screenshots will be on screen if I can find them, assuming they haven't been deleted. Yaoyorozu played a major role in tracking Bakugo down. Not mentioned in the video, but Yaoyorozu creates a tracker and has a classmate stick it to the Nomu, which leads to them finding All For One. No argument. I'm here for the Yaoyorozu glaze. She deserves it. Clones are weaker and less durable than the original, therefore the real Dabi would have killed the teachers. I strongly disagree. Much like his brother, in a fair fight, Dabi's greatest chance at victory is quirk jousting, and at least in the animated show, the clones are basically one-to-one replicas, the difference being the aforementioned durability. I think this show found the best way of showing Dabi didn't stand a snowball's chance in hell without having to reveal his true identity or sacrificing him to jail. Also, a bad time to make that argument, given the only way Dabi beats Aizawa is to catch him off guard, which he did, and he still lost. And Blood Rush crushed him before he could even make it a fight. And he started the sequence and got destroyed so quickly it wasn't even a fight. So TLDR, Dabi, clone or not, can't mess with the teachers whatsoever, and there's arguments that several students could have 1v1 Dabi here. He is that bad. Comment on screen because I don't want to misquote the guy, but this is basically All Might glazing, which I fully support. Outside of his feats of athleticism and mentorship of Deku, an interesting thing about All Might in the fewest words possible is watching him trying to teach 1A how to be better after so many years of being the best. To elaborate, basically All Might, despite being born quirkless, is immensely talented. He's presented in a way where it seems like he picked up on things naturally, and given the way our brains work, at a certain point of intimate knowledge, you forget what the learning process is. I rewatched season 4 and something stood out to me. The side characters. Bro, the writers put Shigaraki on the bench and just started cooking. And it's like that RDC meme about the Olympics.
Easy. Who on that bench? They got Anthony Davis, Anthony Edwards, Devin Booker, Tyrese Halliburton, and Bam Adebayo. Yeah, Bam Adebayo.
Had to say Bam Adebayo twice. Bam in this case being Kai Chisaki. No, that's not a one-to-one comparison. I chose Kai because the season kicks off with him. 6,000 of you watched my last video. While that's a lot of people, given this ratio hasn't changed all year, I'm sad to say there isn't enough of you to get a sentimental backstory or whatever, so here's a digital fist bump. Let's keep it rolling. So the first notable event of the season is twice brings Chisaki to meet with Shigaraki, and this goes about as well as you think. A fight breaks out, Chisaki kills Mag, who I have written down as Torta Pounder. Compress tries to capture Chisaki, and not only does he get shot, Chisaki blows his arm smooth off.
Yeah, boy.
Is blown off an overstatement? Yes. Do I care? Hold that thought. Shigaraki goes after Chisaki and the support sniper misses. Chisaki uses a substitution jutsu and then gets out of dodge. Crazy way to start the season, right? Well, it's only up from here. Sir Night-Eye, I wasn't familiar with your game, but what I am familiar with is human resources, cause buddy, this is sexual. Deku gets baited into the bell challenge. Well, he doesn't have much of a choice, but nonetheless, they start boxing and Night-Eye is like, bro, I've seen this shit before. Just start calling out his moves. Jump, but it's a feint and a fail. Another attack from the blind spot, and it's also a fail. Bro makes Deku look silly. Deku says fuck this and throws a book bag at him. Still fails. Deku eventually says, fuck all that, if you can see the future, I'm gonna go faster than you can process the information in your little ass brain. So Midoriya is blitzing around the room like an aggroed fly or something, and Night-Eye is cool as a cucumber, just chilling, standing in the middle of the room like a sentry. He might have been using it the whole time, but we get visual confirmation of his quirk being activated. And Deku is on the receiving end of one of the coldest moments of the season, and they just gloss right over it. Check this out. So, Night-Eye pats Deku on the back and says,
2 minutes from now, you'll be slumped on the floor with neither the seal nor the contract.
Deku says, I bet. Fuck your desk, nigga. Throws papers everywhere, had bro looking like Obito. If you haven't watched Naruto, this dude right here wins the fight. And I want to say we don't know how, but we do. Reality is hard to accept. Speaking of accepting, it has been 120 seconds since the friendly pat on the back, and Deku is on the floor with no stamp in sight. Damn. Now, Night-Eye accepts Deku as a student because not only is Midoriya second to himself as an All Might Glazer, but he being Night-Eye, was assuming that Deku was indiscriminately attacking him at random, but turns out Deku was indeed tagging him at random, but was under control the whole time, minimizing collateral damage. Speaking of damage,
Emotional damage.
hero named Deku and Lemillion are patrolling the streets and bump into none other than Eri with an E. If Gabby is the poster child for indoctrination, Eri with an E is definitely in the conversation for emotionally abused character of the year with Chainsaw Man. So Chisaki pulls up and is like,
mind your fucking business. Nobody asked you anything, my nigga.
Lemillion eventually convinces Deku it's a marathon, not a sprint, and they back off. Hey, getting two aspiring heroes, including the main protagonist, to put their morals aside and concede without lifting a finger or making a direct threat? Hey, +3 aura, Chisaki, +3. Chisaki then murders someone for causing a slight inconvenience. +1 villainy. Only one because not only was the character insignificant, but he was on your team! Since we're adding up villainy points, now is a good time to mention that Chisaki plans to make quirk deleting drugs and darts, and then sell the cure to heroes. Basically, create a problem and sell the solution. +6 villainy. Kirishima beats up a drug addict to have a quirk awakening. The CIA will be very proud. It is then confirmed that Chisaki is in fact selling steroids. +2 aura, +3 villainy. The heroes get together and form a plan to find Chisaki because they found out that this nigga has not only kidnapped an 8-year-old, but he's using her blood to make quirk killing bullet. During the meeting, this dude is hating for absolutely no reason. I will not follow up on this later in the video, but I'm gonna let this fly either way. First off, you bitching about students being a part of the meeting is wasting more time than them asking questions. Second, piggybacking off that, instead of keeping it professional, you come into the meeting mad over students getting their, getting their first case, and you come in looking for a reason to kick them out instead of focusing on the dude that is medically abusing a child. Now that rant wasn't necessary for the video, but I just want you to remember this dude. Yeah, you don't have to remember him. I forgot to write that into the script. Fast forward, the team pulls up on the Shia Hisaikai hideout and gets straight to business. Warrants out. That's what I like to see. The buff guy gets bodied by Dragon Lady, and how would you feel if I said I was jealous? The food hero wins a 1v3, and honestly, despite him being outnumbered, I'm surprised it took him as long as he did. Fat Gum and Kirishima get separated from the group and get in a boxing match. This ends up being a dick measuring contest, and luckily for the heroes, Fat Gum's quirk literally lets him grow the more he eats, so He's got a hog. Hog jokes aside, Toga encounters the heroes. She stabs Rocklock through the hand. He counters with a punch, but it was in fact a mud clone. The real Toga straddles his back and stabs him in the lower side. She then doubles as Rocklock using her clone quirk and uses that to get close to Deku before attacking him. Aizawa grabs Toga with his scarf, but she uses that to close the distance and stab him before leaving. Now, I'm gonna keep it a beam with you. Between this and the dodgeball event, Toga's stock is up. Also, I didn't write it in, but I told y'all to remember Rocklock because he was talking all that shit about the students and he was the first one to get packed up, and he got packed up by Toga. Twice and Sir Punch-a-Lot attempt to stop the heroes, and this is where first half MVP Night Eye kicks in, sweeps the legs, arm whip into a wall, instant W. After seeing his clone get beat the fuck up, Twice nopes the hell out of there. In a previous video, someone said that Dobby could have killed a teacher if he wasn't a clone. Look, I get that on the fandom, they say that clones are weaker than the original, but they were shown time and time again that the only difference between the clone and the real thing is really durability. I mean, the quirks are just as strong. So for those of y'all that are new here, which is all but 10 to 100 of you, clones count to the win-loss record, especially when you start the fight and get waxed. Toga saves Twice from a split personality episode, and her reward for this is becoming a grooming victim. Yay, villainy. Night Eye, with help from Deku, snipes the wall villain out of the air, and now it's time for my favorite hero in the show, Lil Mill. Earlier, he separated from the group because these traps literally can't slow him down. Lemillion confronts Chisaki and Kai attempts to aura farm him again. Lemillion isn't fucking with it this time, so Chisaki sends Confession and Drunkard to stop him.
Nah, that's not enough.
Armbar, another armbar, but faster this time. At this point, they're already packed up, and I'm not gonna lie, I thought that fight took a lot longer than it did. Lemillion punches them up for extra caution, you know, just to make sure they're done for, you know what I'm saying? Lemillion catches up to Chisaki and about took his head off. He faces a foot through Eri and kicks Plague Mask in the face, separating him from Eri and catching her before she hits the ground. Chisaki crashes out and starts nuking the ground. Lemillion can't use his quirk and hold Eri at the same time, so he hides her and separates Plague Mask from his gun. And I just want you to know, Lemillion is about to put the beats on Chisaki. Jab to the lower jaw, sends him across the room. Plague Mask thinks he's slick, soccer kick to the gut, sends him flying. Chisaki tried another nuke, flying underhand jab to the chin. Not gonna lie, I'm just making up names for these attacks. Confession crawls into the arena and shoots a quirk deleter at Eri because bro got packed up so quickly and efficiently, he couldn't think of any way to stop Lemillion except for shooting up 8-year-old. So despite winning a 1v2 so efficiently, a third person had to show up with a gun. Lemillion, being the best fucking hero in the show, takes a bullet for Eri and smiles through it. Chisaki starts gloating like he did something. I'm not gonna lie, he might be a fraud too. And Lemillion is like, bro, you don't know the lore. The quirk was just a tool. Like when T-Pain stopped using auto-tune, I'm really that nigga. Side note, everyone uses some kind of pitch correction. Stop hating. Lemillion throws Plague Mask at Chisaki. Yes, with no quirk, he picked that nigga up and threw him at Chisaki. Lemillion uses this to close the distance and throw a punch. Chisaki blocks, but the force from the punch numbs his arm to the point to where he can't use his quirk in that arm. Chisaki, still nursing his clearly swollen arm, uses his good hand for a grab attempt. Lemillion weaves this and hits the Patrick Mahomes horizontal platform pose and uppercuts Chisaki so hard he catches air. Like, I promise you, Chisaki was halfway out of his sneakers after that. Chisaki at this point just starts throwing shit, and the crazy part is Lemillion counters every single thing that he's throwing. Eventually, he has to stop Chisaki from impaling Eri and tanks a hit to the lower stomach. Deku shows up and knocks Chisaki across the room. I ain't gonna lie, bro's low-key a ragdoll. At this point, Chisaki has been slapped up so hard, he starts fusing with people. First quarter MVP Night Eye confidently steps in and starts cooking. Now, this is purely cinematic as he's just closing the distance at this point. As he gets closer, Night Eye foresees his own death. Stunned by realizing he's gonna die, he doesn't dodge this attack, which will be fatal. The fight resets and Midoriya steps in. Now, Deku is getting a dedicated video, and it's the reason I'm going through My Hero Academia in the first place. So, for the sake of not repeating myself, we're gonna skip to the end, where Deku beats the steroids out of Chisaki. Alright, bro knocks the Potara earrings off him. knocking him out cold. But it's not over. Shigaraki and gang raid the van transporting Chisaki to prison. He's going to prison. Shigaraki jumps off the van and attempts to disintegrate the escort car and promptly gets grabbed so violently I thought he got punched in the face. Compress uses this distraction to destroy the escort car. Shigaraki then sits out like a good little boy as Dabi goes band for band with Snatch and kills him, is what I would have said if Snatch didn't turn into a marble while Compress conveniently walks off screen and says he doesn't like taking credit for this kind of stuff. Shigaraki couldn't beat Snatch and that's okay. It's not like he's the main antagonist or anything. But Dabi, I thought you were tough. I'm gonna leave that there. Form your own opinions. I will criticize them. Jet Hero captures Kurogiri, which is significant because Giga Nigga is revealed. So despite being hospitalized, Jet Hero still captures Kurogiri, which shows how sorry Kurogiri is. Like, how the fuck you get captured when you have Giga Nigga with you? Speaking of niggatry, we get the Gentle Criminal. After flunking out of hero school, bro tired YouTube and he said,
This rap shit don't work. We running up in niggas' houses,
correlation does not equal causation, but Gentle comes to the conclusion that violence and popularity have a crazy close correlation, right? So he plans on infiltrating the new UA campus for YouTube clout. And I'm not gonna lie, dog, I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna do to get these clout tokens up. I might have to start selling crack or rapping about selling crack. Nonetheless, saving the details for future reference, Deku captures Gentle Criminal and Labrava. Gentle gets a Zenkai boost from Labrava's love quirk, avoiding the obvious questions because despite her appearance, this is a woman, not a girl. It's implied that this isn't the first time she's confessed her love for him. Allegations or not, Deku kicks the Zenkai out of him. Despite beating the duo, Deku didn't have any way to restrain them, so Gentle turns himself in to save Labrava. For narrative reasons, I'm leaving out how he turned himself in, even though you might have seen it on screen. Now the coup de grace, which implies that this season was bad, but in one way or another you can see it as a coup de grace. Endeavor and Hawks are chilling in a restaurant, networking and whatnot. For narrative reasons, we're going to skip why Hawks chose this location because a Nomu shows up. And I'm not going to waste your time. Endeavor puts the beats on this Nomu. Often overlooked because of how it ends, this fight isn't particularly close, which is funny because this isn't the last time this happens to Endeavor. So, speed running, Endeavor hits the Nomu with a fire beam before the episode ends. We come back to this thing missing an arm and it has his chest blown almost open. Death counter at 1. Nomu dodges Endeavor's volley attack and slams him through the nearest building. Unfazed, he simply burns the arm off. Despite losing its arm again, it regrows it and traps Endeavor with a grab attack. After recovering, Endeavor shoots a fire beam. It's unclear whether he snipes the Nomu through the neck or it dodges it, and I'm not going frame by frame because I have an agenda to push. Either way, it ends up in the laser mincer. I don't understand how this didn't cut the Nomu into cute little ham squares, but it does cut him in half. Death counter at 2. Endeavor tries to laser flog the Nomu and destroys a building. Insert taxpayer dollars jokes. I'm assuming this lands because the next time we see the Nomu, he looks like this. Death counter at 3. The Nomu runs away while birthing a mid-tier Nomu for Hawks to flex on. After that, it regenerates, resetting the fight. You didn't see it, but I rolled my eyes. Endeavor enters phase 2 because, I mean, he's the real boss here, to be honest. He shoots the fire version of the Big Bang attack and disintegrates a Nomu. Or so we thought. Death counter at 4. The Nomu doesn't take time to regenerate, it just uses its tendons to stab Endeavor. I know he's been grabbed twice, but this is the first real blow he takes the entire fight, and Endeavor flops like an NBA player. It's upsetting, because, like, he doesn't get rewarded whatsoever for winning this fight 4 times over, but the Nomu gets a gimmick attack off and he gets to gloat about it for 10 minutes. 10 minutes is an exaggeration, but it's more like 40 seconds to like 2 minutes. Also, despite being the #1 hero at this point in time, Endeavor just gets reverted to a glass cannon in his major fights. But the most upsetting thing is the Nomu posing over Endeavor's body as if it did something, as if it earned this situation that it's in, which, funny enough, Endeavor will go through this exact scenario again. Endeavor gets thrown into a building because despite being the only one taking damage, the fight has been a little one-sided thus far. Anyway, Endeavor burns the Nomu to death. I'll save the rant for season 7 because this will happen again, because a certain someone watched this fight and was somehow inspired by the Nomu. Yeah, I'd basically cover the whole 9 here. I did skip Todoroki and Bakugo getting their provisional licenses. Their exam this time was to babysit unruly kids and whatnot. There's a lot of takes you can pull from this, but I just want to point out that this teacher is a total pushover. I agreed with Bakugo's suggestion of knocking some sense into the kids, albeit Todoroki's solution was better. It's hard to put my critique of the teacher into words, but basically, depending on your career path, high school is the peak of a lot of people's education, and most teenagers are well educated but lack the life experience to be truly intelligent. I'm not a teenager, but I'm included in this pool. As the adult, especially if you have a leadership position like a teacher, you should have the ability to take on an arrogant teenager, much less a fucking kid with your superior intellect and life experience. And if the kid is that bad, then you take him to something like this, or you kick them the fuck out. Now, there's nothing saying she didn't try alternate methods, but given she gets bullied by the kid, it's hard to believe otherwise. Anyways, season 4 gets A tier. Really good season. We get Infinite Deku, Lemillion, the Shia Hisaikai raid. Yeah, good cinema, but it lacks the emotional pull of and the stakes of the first 3 seasons. You could argue rescuing an abused child is higher stakes than a fucking sports competition, and you'd be right. But like I said, season 2 got aura. No hot takes, disagreements, or debates in the comments. Just some support for your boy, which I greatly appreciate. I'll save you the grandiose rant about myself, but every video I'm literally one sentence away from someone saying fuck you and everybody that lives in your house. So I appreciate the few times the internet is on my side and gives me a little bit of credit. Oh, and this guy says Gentle Criminal met La Brava when she was a minor. At the time the show was released, or this season was animated, the age of consent in Japan was ridiculously low, but this is America. Lock that nigga up now. Season 5. Straight PvP. Despite the return of this fraudulent son of a bitch, I don't have an agenda to push today, so we're just gonna recap. Day 1, Class 1A takes on the Sanin, and to be honest, this was just a quirk showcase. Very visually pleasing, but irrelevant to the plot. But in case you're curious, Surge gets jumped and eventually tag teamed by Sero and Yaoyorozu. Tamagichi teaches Deku that it's a cold world before gut checking him with a kick. Bakugo then palms him into the asphalt, him being Tamagichi. Cool, respectable, here's your participation trophy. Now let's get into the grits. Class 1A and 1B, according to this comment, in theory should be even. Absolutely not. The teams are uneven, so Shinzo gets 2 evaluation matches. The first match kicks off with Bear 1B slapping Kirishima and Sue across the arena. Animal Planet gets trapped, and it's looking bad for 1A, to keep it a bean with you. Before too much damage can be done, Shinzo puts Bear 1B in Genjutsu. Shinzo is then trapped before he can capitalize on the opportunity. This will happen more than once. Kaminari sacrifices himself. Kaminari sacrifices himself to stun lock Bear 1B, and Sue grabs Glass Boy with her tongue. How would you feel if I said I was jealous? Huh? Kirishima breaks Animal Planet free. He and Animal Planet proceed to do fuck all with this opportunity and promptly gets tossed into the world's strongest and greenest spider web, which eliminates them. Well, actually, just Kirishima, because Bear 1B decides to run Animal Planet to the capture cage himself, which is kind of funny because it just shows how sorry Animal Planet is. Kaminari becomes a sacrificial lamb again when he tries to trade with Bear 1B, but fails. Vineyard gets put in Genjutsu. Asui captures Vineyard and kicks the dog shit out of Thorns. Shinzo drops a vent on Bear 1B. It doesn't work, but at least he got to use the ropes. Before Shinzo gets mauled, Bear 1B gets smacked with 160 pounds of high school hero meat. No pause, take that how you will. To elaborate, in case you're not paying attention to the screen, Asui throws Thorns into Bear 1B before he can maul Shinzo. With Thorns and Bear 1B down, Class 1A gets a dominant win with 4 captures and 1 loss. Round 2 out of 5 is what I like to call the Yaoyorozu slander match. Black kidnaps Aoyama because his light quirk is dangerous, despite the fact he was flashbanged by Invisigirl. I guess he was just sticking to the plan. Tsukuyomi, is it Tsukuyomi or Tokuyomi? Bird Boy saves Aoyama, which basically resets the battle. Phase 2 kicks off with the real fight of the day, Kendo versus Yaoyorozu. Yaoyorozu blocks a vicious punch by Kendo with a shield, but she's thrown across the map nonetheless. Ignore the fact that Yaoyorozu is shocked that Kendo crumbled a tungsten shield like construction paper, because Yaoyorozu is smart enough to know that cars do the same thing to absorb fatal energy. Kendo rushes Yaoyorozu and she decides to turtle instead of fighting. Also, how the fuck is she holding 3 shields? Kendo proceeds to punch the shit out of these shields, mimicking what she saw in the sports festival, and Yaoyorozu uses all this time she bought to make a cannon.
Is this nigga serious?
It sounds silly because it is, but this actually plays out okay. Yaoyorozu is knocked out off camera, which is sad, and I'll rant about it after we watch Invisigirl beat the dog shit out of Manga Man. She proceeds to whoop his ass for a good 8 to 15 seconds. Unfortunately, boxing is a very inefficient way to win a fight, so Invisigirl gets captured by Kendo, which wins the match because Aoyama is captured, Yaoyorozu is unconscious, Invisigirl is captured, and Tokiyomi is incapacitated. Tokiyomi is incapacitated. Class B wins the Yaoyorozu slander match with a 4-0 sweep. How is this the Yaoyorozu slander match? Well, much like people who take selfies with pistols, apparently the staffs and melee weapons Yaoyorozu be posing up with is all for show. Also, she showed there's a difference between being educated and being smart when she spawns shields instead of a personal defense weapon. At no point does she come to the conclusion that she means more to her team alive than knocked the fuck out. Not to mention the cannon. You could argue it was the fastest way to transfer a cure to the team. To elaborate, in case you haven't seen the episode, there's a mushroom girl on the other team and she could spawn them anywhere, making whoever they spawn on sick, which is how Tokiyomi gets incapacitated. So you could argue it was the fastest way to transfer a cure to the team, but not only did it take an extreme amount of time, but it got you knocked the fuck out. And with the power of hindsight, we know that the goodie bag with the cure didn't work. So to make a long rant a little less long, Yaoyorozu doesn't show any secondary skills besides creation. So when she literally gets knocked out without putting up any semblance of a fight to gamble on her quirk, all for it to fail, is very disappointing. But as frustrating as that is, not everyone reaches their full potential, and at least it made you feel something, or it made me feel something, which makes the show good. Match 3, insert cool name here, I couldn't think of one. Todoroki gets singled out by Tetsu ×4, and Tetsu punches him to the floor. Todoroki recovers off camera, and next time we see him, he gets jabbed to the face, left hook, gut check, uppercut so hard Todoroki catches air, then grab attack. Todoroki is getting pieced up so bad his teammates are making faces like this. Todoroki then goes plus ultra, and this buys him just enough time to get kneed in the gut twice. Todoroki attempts to burn Tetsu into submission, and it would have worked if Mudkip didn't show up. Despite losing and being knocked out by environmental damage, Todoroki is saved by Ingenium, which is unfortunate given that Tetsu ×4 won't be plot relevant after this episode. It sucks that he's robbed over a victory over Todoroki. Like, he literally just defeated a prodigy and he gets nothing out of it, and Todoroki doesn't get anything out of it because he's saved. To elaborate, it's unfortunate that none of the teachers or Todoroki himself realize that Todoroki has been exploited in hand-to-hand combat in literally every real fight he's had, but that doesn't matter. What matters is My Hero Academia is trying to teach you that boxing is a very inefficient way to win a fight. It's literally happened in back-to-back episodes. Speaking of fights, Tails and Spiral start boxing, and it's kinda nice. Block, jab gets countered, Tails jumps over the belt check, Spiral gets low and combines a head spin and a kick to knock Tails off balance. Jab, roundhouse misses, another jab block. Tails uses the momentum gained from rolling to come at Spiral with flying double E's. This fight leads to absolutely nothing. I just wanted to point out that My Hero Academia can animate fights pretty well. They just choose not to. Probably for budget reasons, but for narrative reasons, I'm going to tell you it's because a lot of the motherfuckers in this show can't fight. Ingenium captures Spirals and locks him up before saving Todoroki. Despite my opinions of Ingenium, he's actually really good in the training arcs. But as good as Ingenium is, he can't outrun a falling building, so the match ends in a tie. I'm not going to rant about Todoroki. I'm not going to call him a fraud. I'm not going to rant about the fact that Todoroki comes to the conclusion. Match 4, which I dubbed the Who's the Real Prodigy match. I got one word to describe this match: Bakugo. This is Bakugo at his best. Scissorhands does a combo attack with Glue Face to drop pipes on Team Bakugo. I just realized how funny that sentence sounded because I didn't put the S on pipes. But before it lands, the attack gets obliterated. Scissorhands uses the shock of this attack to try to nab Jiro, but by the time he gets into spitting distance, Bakugo absolutely decimates him with a grenade attack. Since fire is non-lethal this arc, Scissorhands is only stun locked, but before he can recover, Bakugo smacks him across the map. Team 4B lures Bakugo into a chase. Bob the Builder traps him. Sugar Rush saves. I tried to say that 4 times, by the way. Sugar Rush saves Bakugo by breaking his restraint, and Bakugo responds by feinting a head-on assault and creating a smoke screen for Jiro and Zero to get the element of surprise on Bob the Builder. Bob the Builder gets jumped, by the way. After jumping Bob the Builder, he catches up to the Goon hero and starts fire punching the shit out of him. He is literally going in a circle, beating the dog shit out of the Goon hero. Bro is so discombobulated that Sugar Rush literally just runs up to him and throws him in an armbar. Scissorhands tries to fight Bakugo in the air.
That don't work.
We've been over this. That shit don't work. Spin Cycle 9000 thrown into a building, he's incapacitated. Zero finds Lizard's real body by just doing some crazy deductive reasoning and hits her with a grenade. Out of self-preservation, she tries to run, but Bakugo hits her with a final flash so violent that it instantly knocks her out. That's all 4 opponents captured or incapacitated in 5 minutes. Bakugo literally just had a 3 kill, 1 assist, flawless ace. I know it was only 4 people, but ace sounds cooler than quad. Enjoy it while you can though, because this is the peak of Bakugo. Not trying to say that he falls off, but after this, it's the Plot Armor Olympics. Not gonna lie, I expected to elaborate on the fact that it's gonna be the Plot Armor Olympics after this, but I didn't. So moving on, Deku versus Class B5. This actually isn't that eventful from a recap standpoint. Given Class B is basing their strategy off the sports festival, they logically rage bait Deku the entire first leg of the battle. This eventually leads to Deku getting so pissed off he accidentally manifests Black Whip. You'd think I'd classify the Black Whip reveal as eventful, but it's just lawless energy at this point. Deku gets put in Genjutsu, and the combination of a woman's touch and getting cussed out puts him back into the fight. Besides that, the match begins and ends with Deku versus Shinzo, and to be honest, I don't know how the fuck they made this interesting for a second time, because Shigaraki, god damn it, because Shinzo can't dance with Deku. Shinzo drops pipes on Deku and he grabs them with Black Whip. If you're looking at the screen, you can tell this was extremely unnecessary but cool, kind of like that meme of the Resident Evil dude doing a backflip off of the door. Anyways, Shinzo takes advantage of the time the pipe trick bought him to run away. There's a joke to be made here, but I can't think of it. Monova gets a freebie off on Deku, which I mean, it's alright. Honestly, doesn't mean anything and doesn't lead to anything, because Deku literally just catches up to Shinzo, and as soon as he gets to him, he just captures him. This ends the match, but before we get into the Shigaraki Quirk Awakening, I didn't mention that Uraraka pops the fuck off. After saving Deku, she puts Monoma in a submission. I'll spare you the jokes. She then one-shots Emily before bull rushing Baseball Girl into a trap. Having a 3-0 run and getting brownie points for air quotes saving Deku? Hey, kind of peak. This is presumably the final training arc of My Hero Academia. I also didn't mention that this is kind of the peak of Uraraka, because after this shit just gets off the rails. All right, 2 days later, let's finish this. I say presumably because I haven't seen season 8 yet. Opinions? The My Hero Academia PvP arcs are actually incredible. It's home to a majority of the real battles in the show. In each of the training arcs, there's like clear winners and losers, which add to the stakes. Obviously, when you make a YouTube video, you have to nitpick, but in totality, the only flaw with the training arcs is the body of work that follows them, not the arc itself. I'll elaborate on that in another vid, but for now, get your Twitter fingers ready, because it's time for another Shigaraki hate-a-sode. Skipping over the hellish Todoroki family for narrative reasons, we get Shigaraki versus Giga Nigga. And I use the word get loosely because 99% of this presumed fight happens off camera, and in the 1% we do see, at least in the anime, it's made very clear that the group can't handle Giga Nigga, much less Shigaraki himself. That was worded kind of weird. They can't handle Giga Nigga as a group. so Shigaraki can't handle him by himself. Alright, moving on. The Love, short for League of Villains, is teleported to a doctor, and despite calling Shigaraki out for being, quote, childish, he decides he would give Shigaraki creative mode nonetheless if he tames Giga Nigga. It's revealed that they've been fighting him for roughly 3 months. It might have been longer. I'm not gonna lie, man. I was kind of zoned out. And if it's as one-sided as what you're seeing on screen, I wouldn't consider that a fight. I'd call that surviving. Shigaraki then gets called out by Redestro, and you could say this is extremely convenient, but the Liberation Army is a good skill check for any unused characters, and the only unused character so far is the Love. Anyways, Toga and Twice are 2 out of the 3 people that get quirk awakenings this arc, and it's funny, someone mentioned Shigaraki's love for his team and whatnot, and that comment was stuck in my head while I was watching Toga get absolutely jumped. Not saying you're wrong, but Shigaraki was nowhere to be found while his homies was getting hopped. That, jokes aside, Toga can now clone the abilities of people she loves. Twice gets over his PTSD and unlocks infinite doubles, making him the biggest threat in the League of Villains, at least for a few episodes. Shigaraki's initial quirk awakening allows him to not only chain decay, but now he doesn't need all 5 fingers to melt you. Shigaraki reaches the tower and gets packed up by Redestro. This ends up being a clone, but that counts. We can argue about it later, but phase 1 of the fight goes to Destro. Shigaraki destroys the tower and lectures Destro about not being in the field with his niggas, and honestly, I agree. But if Bonnie Blue can handle 100 men in a day, you'd assume 110,000 soldiers can handle 5, and that's excluding my opinions about the Love. But man, Shigaraki dodges a super slam, but the AoE sends him ragdolling through the air. He's then captured out of the air and gets at least one of his hands broken. In theory, the fight is virtually over. Shigaraki gets basically submitted, and there's almost no escape, and I put emphasis on almost for a reason. Personally, I'm thinking, why doesn't Redestro just smush him to death, right? But in his eyes, or from his perspective, him being Redestro, he thinks he chopped the head off of the proverbial snake by breaking Shigaraki's hands. The fight resets after Shigaraki uses decay and gets thrown across the arena. And from this point forward, Shigaraki will basically be in creative mode. He spontaneously gets super speed. Redestro says this version of Shigaraki would have cleared the Kimono Squad, and for the record, I cannot emphasize this enough, I strongly disagree. Shigaraki is shown to be unconscious, which is odd because he was fine a second ago, and he hasn't been hit since resetting the fight. Despite getting the Zenitsu Zenkai boost, that is an odd tongue twister, he gets smacked by a Dark Rasengan. This breaks his foot and is the only visual damage I can see without freeze framing, even though it might be freeze framed on your screen. That ball of stress energy might as well have been an alarm clock, because all it did was wake Shigaraki up because he's clearly conscious now. Redestro is now scared of Shigaraki because throughout this fight he's been hit twice by decay, and to be fair, given how overpowered this quirk becomes starting like 30 minutes ago, I don't blame him. Redestro goes for the finishing blow, but Shigaraki blocks it. Redestro tries again and Shigaraki simply decays his fist before it can do any damage. I'ma keep it a bean. Shigaraki is cooking right now. Redestro attempts to flee, and instead of using his newfound super speed to chase him, Shigaraki just nukes the city. Redestro is incapacitated and Shigaraki takes over the Liberation Army. That's basically the end of season 5. This season I skipped over the agency internships and the hellish Todoroki family. I'll save the Todoroki family rant for season 7 because this is, well, the first of 3 parts actually. As for the agencies, the remarkable thing to me is Endeavor. He starts with the lead by example, trial by fire method of teaching, which with the other teachers I'm harsh on, but between Bakugo and Deku, they're self-sufficient learners, so Endeavor gets a pass. Besides that, he gives them all a similar goal. And it's neat that between the 3 quirks and styles, Bakugo, explosion and omnidirectional fighting, Midoriya's street fighting and physical enhancement, and Todoroki's fire and raged attacks, between the group he was able to give good advice on how to replicate this technique in 3 different ways. Oh, I forgot to mention Hawks is revealed as a spy. The comments were so spicy this video, that's why I decided to add them into this recap. Alright, let's kick these things off. As you know, I am paraphrasing them, but the exact quote will be on screen. Shoto was about to in Tetsu. Tetsu had to be saved or he would have been melted. If you watch Nightcap, you will hear Shannon Sharp say, never accept anything in a win that you would in a loss. And the crazy thing is, Todoroki lost, yet we're making excuses for him. I see the vision only if you literally ignore the fact that Todoroki was getting slapped up for the entire episode, but that's the problem. He did. If all Todoroki had to do was just burn Tetsu into submission, why did he have to get punched up for 5 minutes before attempting to do it? And why did it take so long to do it that he gets third party without trading? I literally did a play-by-play breakdown of the fight. I genuinely don't understand how you watch that and cope for the dude. Tetsu ×4 deserved that knockout, but unfortunately Todoroki is immune to physical damage. In case I forget to mention it, this is another scenario where a character does something and the characters and the teachers just completely ignore it, which leads to the character, in this case Todoroki, not developing or improving as a character and being content with being the dogshit version of himself that he is. Dogshit is a bit of an overstatement, but I am very frustrated with Todoroki. Pretty sure Yaoyorozu concluded that she couldn't beat Kendo in a melee. I agree, and that's Aizawa's fault. Compared to everyone else in the event, all Kendo has going for her is enlarged hands, which basically give her Pack-a-Punch. So the fact Yaoyorozu, a female hero, wasn't trained to deal with someone bigger, stronger, or more athletic than her is a reflection of her mentors, including that woman she did her internship with. Also, I don't know why she comes to this conclusion, given she's familiar with weapons and there's just a number of PDW's personal defense weapons she could have summoned that outranges Kendo's hands, and that's excluding guns. So in short, Yaoyorozu fumbled, and that's a slight to her and Aizawa. Big W for Kendo though. I wanted to do a clarification on that, but I think it's pretty straightforward. Yaoyorozu is set up to be able to handle a character like Kendo, or at least make the fight interesting, yet she gets dog walked. This next one has multiple layers. It's going to be a little biased, but let him cook. I'll debate it as we read it out. Class 1B in half, if not all their matches, had a better plan and lost to an ass pull by 1A. To be fair, the plans 1B had is based on outdated information, so this turned into something interesting, but not particularly the best case or showcase for Class 1B. To elaborate, for Class A, this turns into a showcase of who has and has not improved since the sports festival. For 1B, this turns into who can execute / adapt the plan when it does or doesn't work. He adds, the first match was good, but you're telling me Ibara couldn't catch all of them with vines. Also, Bear 1B can tank a full discharge pause from Kaminari and a pipe to the head double pause, but is knocked out by Asui the Frog Queen. She should have MVP by the way. Starting with Ibara, on one hand, I agree that if she could have captured all 4 opponents for an instant win, there's no reason she shouldn't have. But honestly, in that case, she would have been nerfed for entertainment value. But on the other hand, in the wise words of Itachi Uchiha, every attack has its weaknesses. If Ibara was put in an offensive role, the limitations of her power would have been found and exploited. And given how air quotes good Class B's planning is, you can assume they put her in the role that best suits her abilities. In short, Ibara is incredible, but not that incredible. As for Bear 1B, I don't know what to tell you. She should have got hoed. This show has a habit of making characters absolute bullet sponges until they aren't, so I agree with that point 100%. Bear 1B got hoed and should have been MVP, but since he lost, the MVP is Asui, which should piss you off given that they shaft him and don't even give Asui praise for taking over and pulling a win out of chicken shit. To clarify on that, you should be upset that Class 1B didn't win this match, forcing Class A to improve, but also even though Asui pulled the win out of her ass, she also doesn't get the praise and recognition of doing it. So you kind of get the worst of both scenarios. They don't win, forcing our protagonist to be better, but also even though our protagonist won, we don't get any storyline out of it. It's literally just happened just to happen. He continues, Momo can create any weapon, yet has no shown weapon skills. How the fuck did manga survive a 30-second ass whooping? Besides that, maybe he could have used automatopoeia to create light to counter dark shadow. We agree about Yaoyorozu, and he's not the only one that brought up that manga would be able to manifest or enhance light. I'm not tapped in on manga man like that, so I'll concede that, while adding he would have had to generate a lot of light to negate dark shadow. Skipping his opinion of the third match because we both agree that Todoroki must have shock absorption or something, he adds, there were better ways to show Bakugo's growth besides this shit show, it would have been better if he lost. I see what you're saying, but this was genuinely a bad matchup for Class B. Plus, they assumed Bakugo was a hothead and would blindly leave his team behind, and if I remember correctly, the plan was to systematically take out his teammates, then jump Bakugo. Given his fighting style, once this turned into a series of 1v1s with his teammates in support roles, there's nothing they could have done. And I liked seeing a powerful character show the power gap without being nerfed or trolled for 10 minutes. Side note, the Bob the Builder thing was so out of left field. I'm 100% confident that Class B could have baited Bakugo into a trap. I don't have a problem with the scenario or the person that trapped Bakugo, but the way it happened was super silly. In addition to that, he comments, remember when Hagakure and Tetsu x4 punched their enemies 20 times and it didn't do shit? That's because they didn't train in gunhead martial arts. That's funny as hell. He also adds that double impact is supposed to be a hand-to-hand demon, so he doesn't understand how he got one shot by Uraraka. I see the point, but this just supports my claim that Uraraka is overpowered because no one else learns how to fight. Now, I think this was another bad matchup for Class B because you're against Deku, a tier 1 fighter / character, and Uraraka, one of, if not the strongest tier 2 character in the show. Personally, while I think Uraraka in a 1v1 or a series of 1v1s clears everyone on the team, especially given how quickly she captures Monoma, I point out Monoma because we were shown that he's no slouch. I think it would have been nice to see a real fight between her and whoever on Class B, rather than watch Deku manifest a new ability he can't use and watch Shizo run around like a chicken for 10 minutes. That concludes the comments. Anyways, I still enjoyed the last training arc. I think it's peak. Obviously, it could have been better, but I genuinely think if what we saw here was followed up on, he and the people in agreement with him wouldn't have beef with the battles. For example, me and this guy agreed that Class B gets nothing out of this fight, and it would have been nice to see, or would have been nice if their exploits forced Aizawa to be a better teacher. I know I said that concludes the comments, but actually there's a few more. Okay, this guy says, Shigaraki isn't like Madara or any other villain who just rapidly attacks like Goku. He uses battle IQ to win his fights. He wasn't unconscious against Redestro. He was locked in. Personally, I think Madara and Goku might have been the worst characters to compare Shigaraki to. Madara had so much hatred, he groomed someone to make him basically an immortal zombie so he can get revenge. Madara, the one who took on an army by himself. Madara Uchiha, a character who literally took on the 5 Kage and slapped him up 1v5. And then in the middle of the battle said, since y'all are jumping me, how about I even the odds? In the middle of the battle, he said, since y'all are jumping me, how about I even the odds? He spawned shadow clones, then says my shadow clones can use one of the most powerful jutsus in the entire show.
I have one question for you. Would you prefer for all of these clones to use Susanoo against you or not?
Not to mention Madara has a bag and battle IQ. He literally died to a god. I'ma keep it so real. There's an argument that Shigaraki can't box with Rock Lee, so I don't know why the fuck you'd mention Madara of all people. Second, we're not going to imply that Goku is a low IQ punch spammer. We're not implying that Goku, the one who learns Kaioken in record time, the one who bodies the entire Ginyu Force so bad they steal his body, the one who bodies Frieza, a villain that shouldn't be in the same script as this blue turtle. Goku and Madara Glaze aside, I would have heard you out if you said Shigaraki is an instinctive fighter, hence why he's frequently caught off guard, but the fact that you insulted my video and my character as a person, and you, the Shigaraki fanboy who self-proclaimed read the manga, which I haven't, couldn't even give me an example of Shigaraki battle IQ, is all I needed to hear. By the way, I called him out for not providing evidence of what he said, and his response was, and I'm paraphrasing, I didn't give examples because I'm tired of debating, and he made some shit up. Look, TLDR, which is short for too long didn't read, I'm biased. I have some hot takes about the show, but I'm putting the evidence that led me to these wild ass opinions on screen and explaining them. So if you're gonna tell me I'm wrong, the least you could do is give me one example of how, which a lot of you did. But this guy says if you're calling season 5 Uraraka her peak, you're objectively wrong. She fought and eluded Toga's infinite doubles while bleeding out. I agree, saying she peaked was an overstatement, even with my opinions on the Uraraka versus Toga fight. So, okay, when I wrote this a while ago, because the script took a long time to make, I originally conceded this point. I changed my mind. Uraraka and the heroes as a whole did peak in season 5 because the league of villains and the villains as a whole in this show are so awful. The heroes in this show do not need to improve to complete the goal. At no point in this show were the villains in the show at a level to where the heroes couldn't beat them. Were they at a point to where they needed to develop and improve, otherwise they were going to lose. Hence why in the show, they literally never lose a fight. While her fight versus the Sad Man's Parade was impressive, it was a very impressive feat, honestly, you could have gotten a lot more out of Uraraka, and I think season 5 is personally her peak, because, I mean, I can rant about it. That Sad Man's Parade just really didn't live up to the hype. It was a glorified pajama party, and honestly, if you think Uraraka have a pajama party with a fucking villain is better than what she is, an improvement over what she is in season 5, I really can't argue with you. That's your opinion, you can keep it. But genuinely, I believe that 7 seasons into a show in the middle of a war arc, you would expect your heroes to be doing, I don't know, war things. If you want your villains to challenge their opinions, you would want them to actually challenge the opinions rather than just reverting to a damsel in distress. I could literally rant about this. So yeah, I wrote that I could see this point. I do not. Uraraka did peak in season 5. The entirety of the heroes peak in season 5. Obviously, there's going to be little things here and there that show gradual improvement or the illusion of improvement because the show has to carry on for 3 more seasons, even though the villains have suffered showing the defeats twice by this point. So, hey, we can debate about it, but yeah, I stand on that. Uraraka did peak in season 5. Someone asked, why did Dark Shadow float there and do nothing while Tokiomi was choking to death? Honestly, this is all headcanon. We've came to the consensus that if anyone could have clutched that match, it would have been Dark Shadow. We came to that conclusion because, well, Tsukuyomi literally clutched the 1v2 or 3 before his windpipe closed. Back to the question. Me personally is one of 2 things. Either Dark Shadow, while independent, is tied to Tsukuyomi's well-being. Meaning, if Tsukuyomi is, let's say, incapable of breathing, Dark Shadow is on the pup list. Pup is short for physically unable to perform. Yeah, Dark Shadow is on the pup list until Bird Boy gets his wits about him. Second thing it could have been is just simply a plot hole, and the writers or the animators could have just completely forgot about Dark Shadow when they took artistic liberties on the scene. If you follow the scientific method that says that your answer is probably the one with the least amount of assumptions, it's unfortunately probably just a plot hole. This guy says you don't get to slander the greatest villain in history. W Rage Bait. Ida was the MVP. Honestly, I was wrong about Ida. He's actually a really good support character. I'm glad he wasn't a static character after being bailed out of dying to Stain. Kendo got her time to shine. Honestly, Kendo, W character. She's 2-0 in her fights, which is pretty much all the screen time she gets, unless you count the beauty pageant. Alright boys, I gotta power up for this one. Comment. The heroes aren't in a combat course. They're in a hero course, which is for 2 types of heroes, combat and support. You know, I don't mind being challenged, but you don't have to be an asshole about it. So for this interaction, I'm gonna be a lot more blunt than I am in the comments. This is fucking stupid. What is this correlation doesn't equal causation bullshit? They are in the hero course, and half of their training involves combat. What the fuck are we talking about? He continues, Yayorozu doesn't want to be a frontline hero. Neither do most of the people you clown on like Koda. You know, sometimes someone says something so blatantly wrong, I don't know how to call it out because it's so obvious. Anyways, he adds, that isn't going to change because they're doing a joint training exercise. Where do you start? Do I tell him that heroes have to subdue villains? That's just kind of the nature of the game. Do I say these characters have received combat training and have been in real combat, some of them 3 times over? Look, I'm gonna say Koda is trash because we're 5 seasons into the show and you just got dog walked by a nigga with less than 5 minutes of screen time. And not only did he little boy him, Koda didn't even put up a fight. If you're that inept at fighting, you need to do paperwork, alright? Can you imagine a scenario where Koda is the closest hero to some vandals, right? And he gets beat up by them? And this dickhead is telling you, the viewer, to get your facts straight. He's in air quotes rescue/support hero. Get the fuck out of here. And for Momo, I'm sorry, given her background, I thought she would put up a fight against Kendo, and that in season 8 she pulls out PDWs to defend the floating cage off camera, not to mention the first time we see her in a USJ Attack she has PDWs, but I'm taking crazy pills for saying maybe she should have did, I don't know, something against Kendo besides get beat the fuck up. He replies, again, numbnuts, the hero course is for frontline heroes and support heroes. The support course is for engineers. To this day, I don't see what this is supposed to prove. That was quite literally my point. If you want to cope and say Yaoyorozu can't fight because she's a support hero and doesn't want to be on the front lines, she should go to the support course with Hatsune. To clarify, because of the way I divvied this up, I cut out a lot of the argument, but this was one of those scenarios where he disagreed with my take, and instead of disproving me or telling me how I'm wrong, he just kind of explained the situation. And it's like, the excuse for why it happened doesn't change the fact that it happened. It's hard to word, but if I say Kota is a dog shit fighter and we just watched him get dog walked by Class B, and your response to that is, you're wrong, Kota isn't a fighter. Yeah, that is just evidence to my point. He's a shitty fighter and you said he's not a fighter. Like, those kind of go together. Like, the Legos are sticking together. Yet you're telling me I'm wrong. I don't get it. Believe this is the same person. He adds, secondly, Kirishima was knocked flying because he didn't activate hardening. Later on, he says, and Kota for the third time isn't a frontline hero. Kirishima was grabbed and thrown across the map. Whether he used his quirk or not, it wouldn't change the fact that he was grabbed and thrown across the map. It's kind of like when the United States says, try me and you'll die braver than the rest. Kirishima breaking himself up, all it would have done is just made him hit the ground harder after he got shot putted. And Kota, like I said earlier, that's kind of my point. He can't box. He's so inept at combat, he can't contribute to the match. You're not saying it's wrong. You're just making excuses, which is exactly why he's a sorry son of a bitch in season, 5 seasons into the show, because no one told him to log in and stop being such a pussy. I understand being supportive and being positive, but at a certain point, you gotta be harsh and hope they prove you wrong. And if you're such a big fan of Kirishima and Kota, you should have been pissed off that they got eliminated and all they did was get cardio in. It's hilarious you think Yaoyorozu didn't improve at all. She read Kendo like a book. Listen. When I say nigga, I don't mean black people, I mean ignorance. Ignorance comes in all shapes, sizes, and colors. That's not a direct quote, but if you know what show that came from, you're a real one. Anyways, contrary to the quote I used, ignorance doesn't bother me. Stupidity does. Yaoyorozu pulled out a shield and got destroyed by Tsukuyomi. 3 seasons later, she pulls out a shield and a cannon and gets knocked out by Kendo. If you watched that and said, wow, Yaoyorozu really improved, she handled that well, I don't know what to tell you. You can't be saved. Kota gets to shine in the final arc where he overcomes his shyness. I'ma keep it so real. If I say niggas can't box and you're telling me about Unicorn Kota contributing versus Steroid Spinner, you deserve to get laughed out the gym. Also, what does that have to do with him getting packed up by Shishida? You know what? It took Kota 7 seasons to be competent enough to help fight Spinner. If that's good character growth and character development for you, have at it. But in my opinion, he sucks ass, no pause. At no point does Bakugo get hoed by the plot. Hey, look, I guess using Howitzer on Quirkless Shigaraki, only for him to pull a shield out of his ass, isn't getting hoed by the plot. I guess blowing Quirkless Shigaraki's face off, only for him to regenerate, isn't getting hoed by the plot. And that's not mentioning having to take on Izanagi all for one. Look, I'm gonna be honest, that shit was fine. It was cinema. But having to kill All For One 3 times over, only for him to live because Deku has to kill him, is one of the biggest examples of getting hoed by plot in recent memory. I brought up Dragon Ball Z because it's more your speed. Meaningless, flashy garbage. You come in my comment section talking about Animal Planet and the difference between having mushrooms in your lungs and in your windpipe, and you have the fucking goal to say Dragon Ball is flashy garbage. He's gone mad. I'm not even a Dragon Ball fan like that. I just play the games, but off the top of my head, Piccolo teaming up with his mortal enemy, a man he was literally born to kill, teaming up with Goku, the man that killed his father, and putting that hatred aside to save the world is flashy garbage. Piccolo raising the son of the man who killed his father is flashy garbage. Goku, despite what I said about Piccolo's father, a guy who spares virtually everyone, right? Nappa, not with his own hands, killed Yamcha, right? And beat half of his friends to death, or beat his friends half to death, right? Goku paralyzes him. No killing, despite seeing one of his childhood friends murdered. Goku spares Vegeta, someone who nuked a city, and beat Goku into incapacitation. Goku spares Raccoon. Goku watches his friends die in front of him, and this leads to one of the most legendary transformations of all time. And also the revelation that some people are so evil, they have to be dealt with. Some people can't be redeemed. That's flashy garbage. The infuriating thing about this guy's comments is there isn't a rebuttal, he's just lore dumping. At no point does he disprove what I said, he just makes excuses for the characters. Then, to slander not only Dragon Ball, but the intelligence of me and the people who agree with me is absolutely disgusting. Honestly, I'd ban this nonce, but you can't hide dumb shit from the world. It only emboldens them. Anyways, on a positive note, season 5, peak tier. It was so good. I wish that it was followed up on in a better way. So much happens in that class 1, class B battle, and just in season 5 in total, and a lot of the storylines that could have been built off of that are completely abandoned. But apparently it doesn't matter because a lot of them approve off camera like Coda's bitch ass. Season 6, 2 arcs, the Battle of Jaku Hospital and the Vigilante Deku arc. Shigaraki takes over the Liberation Army, declares he's going after One for All, and claims this battle will be the last.
I'll use all the power I can get to destroy All Might and his legacy. Our next fight's his last.
I have a lot of reservations about that, but no one gives a fuck. The heroes pull up to the hospital, and that's what I like to see. Miracle arrives at the basement and starts spawn killing. The doc awakens the high-end Nomu, and Miracle beats the shit out of them. She split kicks 2 of them and knocks a portion of their heads off. These 2 live. She then kicks the head off a third, and he dies instantly. And I just dealt with 3.5 seasons of Reiner's bullshit, so like seeing a motherfucker, despite getting jumped and being overmatched, Miracle cracked Shigaraki's pod, disabling it. At this point, she's lost an arm, a chunk of her leg, and at some point she lost or will lose a foot. Miracle is a badass. I see why Dabi was scared of her. While she was doing that, it was a tale of 2 halves. Downstairs, Miracle is fighting for her life and getting jumped because her team is underprepared and overmatched, but upstairs, heroes are out there handing out free cans of whoop ass. Alright, the rebranded Liberation Army is getting that belt. Endeavor kills like 7 mid-tier Nomu. Cementos has this crazy pull-up. I'm talking about walking your trap, take over your trap type shit. Midnight's out here doing therapy lessons. For an episode and a half, I was like, I might have been wrong about you. I was not, by the way. Edgeshot literally takes out 13 villains with 1 attack. Midnight puts a group of at least 7 to sleep, and K-Wood captures a screen full of villains. Like literally the entire screen of villains all captured. Like he just solos them with 1 attack. Mudkip turns this into the floor is lava, and shrooms make niggas sick. I forgot to mention this battalion, alright, of the league put their faith in this washed, disgruntled uncle. He kind of looks like Wrath, to be honest. He gets countered by Kaminari, which is badass for Kaminari, but damn! You're a Liberation Army general and you got negated by Kaminari, dog. Someone else ends up taking him out. I just wanted to say that to push an agenda. Yeah, Hawks puts Twice in whatever the fuck this is. Despite folding Twice like he's in a Bang Bus audition, Twice literally just stands up.
Boy, ain't no fucking way, boy.
He and Hawks get in an argument. This argument lasts long enough for Dabi to crash the party by blowing a hole in the wall and half of Hawks' wings. Twice escapes through the hole, but before he can get anywhere, Hawks stabs him through the back figuratively and literally. This wound will be fatal but comes at a cost, and in a few seconds it took to kill Gene, Dabi was able to set Hawks on fire. This looks bad, but it's okay, he'll live, you know what I'm saying? They say his wings grow back in 3 days, but yeah, he won't have them for a few seasons if at all. Speaking of things not coming back, Twice got a few clones off before bleeding out, and he saves Compress and Toga from some nameless NPC. Toga watches Twice die, and this triggers her into finally being a villain and going on a murder spree. Shigaraki. Clap it up for Toga. She has officially peaked. Shigaraki is revived, and honestly, he should have waken up earlier when the doc pushed the button. Xless is shocked to see Shigaraki and dies without putting up a fight. Shigaraki then nukes the hospital, indiscriminately destroying everything except a convenient amount of Nomu to be flexed on. After destroying the hospital, Shigaraki is immediately confronted by Endeavor. Shigaraki's response to this is, damn, I just woke up and I got the #1 hero. Yes, fucking sir, what you gonna do about it, Mr. Main Antagonist? The answer is not much, because Brock, if you hear me say Brock, it's because I got sick of writing Endeavor. Okay, let's try this again. The answer is not much, because Endeavor sets Shigaraki on fire, weaves his graviton before face palming him into the ground, sets him on fire again, this time harder. Shigaraki explodes, resetting the fight. Endeavor rushes Shigaraki but gets blocked by a shield. Shigaraki uses this shield to repel Endeavor, then chase Deku. Phase 1, I think, unanimously goes to Endeavor. Eventually, Endeavor and Dragon Lady catch up to Shigaraki. They attempt to land a decisive blow, but Shigaraki dodges. At a certain point, Shigaraki gets an opening and punches Endeavor into Dragon Lady. He flexes for a bit, and then at this point, he starts getting jumped. So we'll skip the play-by-play and start back up when a quirkless Shigaraki survives a Dragon Fist. I want to be pissed off, but you're telling me a chat GPT blonde he beat up Vegeta? Bro, the world is failing. I'm devastated. Shigaraki gets jumped to the point where his chest explodes. I won't hold the jumping against him this video, and we're gonna skip past him getting beat the fuck up by Deku because Deku is getting a dedicated video. All you need to know is Midoriya stun locks Shigaraki long enough for Endeavor to land another Dragon Fist on his quirkless body. This literally incinerates him to the point he has no identifiable features. At this point, All For One takes over and saves Shigaraki from capture. His radio waves were the final blow to the heroes, and he escapes. I jumped around a bit because I've broken this fight down before and I'm gonna have to do it again in the Deku video, but to give a summarized opinion, this entire sequence was so inconsequential. Sometime before the fight, he says he's gonna kill All Might, which translates to killing Deku because All Might is retired, and he also wants to cause anarchy, for lack of a better word, right? And over the course of 10 episodes, he has so many opportunities to do so, but he does fuck all with it. First fight with Endeavor, you run away to chase Deku, right? But then deal with the freaking issue at hand, right? You had this massive brawl with the #1 hero, right? And you didn't lay a finger on him until you self-detonated, and surprisingly, he survived, blowing himself the fuck up. When you left Endeavor, he still has the ability to fly and the will and ability to fight, right? This puts you in a situation where now you're dealing with Endeavor and Dragon Lady. You get a hand on Dragon Lady, right? And you knock Endeavor to the ground, right? And you mock him. And you want to know what would have been cool? You want to know what would have been some sick, main antagonist shit to do, right? Instead of mocking Endeavor, if you would have removed his ability to fly or used this powerful ass quirk to kill him when you had the chance. This eventually comes back to bite him. Shigaraki gets face to face with Deku, a character he literally threatened to kill in the first season, right? Someone this entire arc is about, right? You're wide awake, right? No, I'm sleepy, I just woke up. Excuses, right? You get an entire episode to fight the dude, and all you did was bite him! You bit the nigga! So All For One is walking off the field and says that Shigaraki lost, and quote, it's only fair Shigaraki pays for his mistakes, end quote. Well, it's been 10 episodes, right? The villains get swept at the hospital. No one gives a fuck about that because Hawks killed a villain and nobody. Shigaraki awakens as the most powerful character in the show and proceeded to do fuck all with it, and no one, including that bum I'm quoting, that makes him pay for that, right? Now let's flip it, alright? What does Endeavor get for beating the fuck out of Shigaraki? He gets exposed for being a shitty father. What does Midoriya get for beating the shit out of Shigaraki? He gets put in a fucking coma because he did more damage to himself than Shigaraki or Endeavor did, right? And then he gets forced into his vigilante arc. The heroes in general start getting trashed in the media and the public because they couldn't catch Shigaraki, and then obviously Endeavor got exposed as a shitty father, like I said, and that's cool. It makes me feel bad.
Even though I'm a big gorilla, I got feelings too. Man, that shit hurt my feeling.
You know what I'm saying? I like shows that make me feel something and things of that nature, right? But this fucker here, right? It's only fair that Shigaraki pays for his mistakes, end quote. Brother, he suffers no consequences for taking another show-ending defeat. The thing that makes my dislike for Shigaraki a burning passion is when people disagree with my take that he's a fraud, a nepo baby, and a shitty villain. They like to point to this fight and the Deka City incident and tell me Shigaraki is cool, he's so badass. Yes, the main antagonist, right, the foil to Midoriya, is a good villain because he nukes a city that is 90% fucking villains, right? But funny enough, despite nuking the fucking headquarters, like the city, right, look at all of these people that survive and join his army. Anyways, so Shigaraki also nukes a evacuated hospital. Congratulations, there are real life humans that can say they destroyed a vacated building. But I don't know how much that made it in. I hope it was funny. It'll happen again. Hopefully not this video. All For One breaks himself out of prison using Nomu and Shigaraki's body. He then goes on a crime spree, releasing villains all over Japan. This, along with the Toya reveal, causes the public to lose faith in the heroes, and not to mention there's a bunch of villains loose in the streets. Funny enough, All For One does more in a single episode to disrupt hero society than Shigaraki does the entire show. Anyways, Vigilante Deku.
Now I gotta pull up. Everybody dying.
To be honest, a lot less action than I expected. So the UA campus becomes a refugee center, and Midoriya is like, yeah, at any given time, I can get jumped by an incompetent nuke user and a quirk stealer, so I'm gonna go do my own thing. Midoriya ends up doing his best All Might impression, basically free roaming around the map, solving an absurd amount of crime. Unfortunately, if you skip too many meals, your body will fatigue, and if you skip a nap or two, you will fatigue even faster. After a fight with Muscular and Lady Nagant, Deku passes out while being confronted by Dictator. Dictator is promptly knocked the fuck out by Bakugo, and we get a very emotional battle between Deku and his classmates. Despite being a quirk showcase, this was actually really good. I mean, obviously they're trying to beat the teamwork back into Deku, and this entire fight can be described as he can't be stopped, but we can't contain him. But instead of recapping a bunch of insignificant mini fights between him and his classmates, I'll throw in a different perspective. It feels like Class A is breaking the fourth wall with this episode. Normally in these kind of shows, power levels get so wild toward the end of the show, the starting class becomes, well, irrelevant. It's not just a coup de grace to a bunch of forgotten characters. It's actually kind of funny because most of the characters in this episode are strong enough to fight the league directly or be in a supporting role, which actually ends up happening. And I've said this before, but if you see My Hero Academia as a game, kind of like one of your favorite characters does, you can make several 3 to 5 man teams that can beat the game rather easily, and that does not exclude the students. But on the other hand, despite a handful of these characters being involved in the next season, Deku will end up having to fight Shigaraki alone. I feel like I skipped a lot this season, but honestly, it's just the Battle of Jaku Hospital in Vigilante Deku. I covered virtually everything except the recovery episodes. Recovery in this case being literally recovering from injuries. I also didn't emphasize how massive of an effort this was from the heroes, but to be honest, this operation was near flawless. It's a miracle the league survived this. It takes multiple mind-bending feats for the league to make it out. You just heard it, but Twice is captured and saved by Dabi, but Dabi showing up doomed Twice to death. Toga is captured, but if Dabi hadn't shown up or Twice bled out a minute earlier, she'd be in jail. Shigaraki is burned to death twice and survives. Compress dies, saving the entire league from Best Genus. Someone did point out in the season 8 episode that he actually lives, which is wild, but for the sake of this thing, he does die, or at least retires. So I know season 6 gets us so invested because the League of Villains are getting blitzed and the heroes seem to do all this just to fail, but I can't stress this enough, the League of Villains got wiped this season. All For One really saves the movement in this season, and from the fourth wall, he really saved people's perception of Shigaraki. How could quirkless Shigaraki steal Endeavor's quirk? He cannot, and if I said that, that was a misquote by me. I was under the impression that Aizawa doesn't arrive until Deku and Bakugo get there, but also quirkly Shigaraki is strong enough to incapacitate Endeavor, and to be honest, we're shown time and time again, it doesn't take much to injure or sideline the guy being Endeavor. He argues maybe Shigaraki didn't kill or really harm Endeavor out of respect for Dabi, which is a fair point if you believe Shigaraki and Dabi were close like that, or Dabi would trust Shigaraki with that information. Outside of that, I just want to say that Shigaraki should have dealt with Endeavor out of a sense of self-preservation, but honestly, I don't think he has, well, to be honest, I don't think he's competent enough to deal with Endeavor. With that being said, season 6 lands in the should have been better tier. Given the significance and the stakes of the two arcs, you could argue A tier, but this season and season 7, or, well, the Plot Armor Olympics. At this point of writing the script, I've finished the show, and I feel like we should have gotten Season 8 Shigaraki from Season 6 forward. Also, I added in some of my opinions with that debate with that nonce. Anyways, obviously the heroes took him serious because, well, they knew he had the potential to be dangerous, but what about us? I'm just saying, it would have been nice to see Shigaraki show some potential in his self-proclaimed final battle with One For All. To clarify, the heroes always take Shigaraki serious because they know what his quirk can do. I'm just saying it would have been nice to see him, I don't know, do something and show us that he could actually be dangerous before the final battle. You could argue that him nuking Redestro's city was him showing that air quotes potential, and I mean, if that's enough for you, I guess so. I mean, nuking a city is a great feat of athleticism, but honestly, he's never done anything against the heroes that make me think, wow, he is actually a threat to Deku and, well, the hero society. Season 7, the Plot Armor Olympics. One thing I like about this season is we immediately get into the grits. Shigaraki versus Stars and Stripes. After dodging Shigaraki's opening move, Stars goes on a flawless run. First, she traps Shigaraki in an airless vacuum. It sounds overpowered, but Shigaraki conveniently has a breathing quirk. Shigaraki attempts to close the gap, but gets punched across the map and grabbed before he can recover. Shigaraki is restrained, but is saved by mental illness, so he explodes, resetting the fight. This explosion bought Shigaraki enough time to watch Stars summon Susanoo, and just enough time to get uppercut by it. Whilst ragdolling, Stars super claps him, no pause. This stun locks him long enough for Stars to spear him with this colossal laser beam, which allegedly stops his regeneration. I don't believe that shit. Stars then does this massive Brawlhalla nuclear Superman punch, and that's not an exaggeration. She literally detonates a nuke on the dude. Shigaraki survives by burying himself underground, and I would have believed him if he didn't leave the ground looking like this. Plot armor counter at 2, by the way. I forgot to count it the first time when he was literally suffocating. Actually, no, I take that back. What got the plot armor counter at 1 was when he literally escaped being captured by having a mental disability. Despite being the strongest character in this episode, Stars dies to Despite being the strongest character in this episode, Stars dies to poor stamina management, or at least that's the best excuse I can think of, because Shigaraki just grabs Stars, uncontested. Between detonating a nuke and dying, Stars literally floats in place. She does not move an inch. Shigaraki kills Stars via decay and steals New Order. New Order starts destroying the other quirks in his body, but don't worry, Shigaraki fans, he will keep all the quirks convenient to his survival. For example, he gets stun locked again, but he literally just flies out of it. And if you didn't think that was ludicrous or convenient, he also got to keep his EMP quirk. I will keep the plot armor counter at 2 solely because there is no way the main antagonist dies to jet lasers, and honestly, I wouldn't want to see Shigaraki defeated like that. That would be a little cheap. Whilst Shigaraki is recovering from his injuries, we get the Aoyama traitor revealed, and
I mean, it's alright, like...
It's one of those things where it's more about what happens after the reveal rather than the reveal itself. I like that Deku tells Aoyama you too can be a hero, which is a reference to one of the most motivational scenes in the show. I'll also add that I like how they ignored someone in his position, him being Aoyama, would lie or worse, out of a sense of self-preservation or peer pressure. It sounds like a critique, because it is, but I'm glad we didn't have to go through half an episode of pretending they didn't trust him if they were just gonna reintegrate him back into the school or whatever their plan was to defeat Shigaraki when they inevitably encountered him again. Something else I like is Uraraka.
Get out there! That nigga is get out there!
Not like that, but my opinion of her has exponentially grown between then and now. Then being this video, Uraraka reflects and realizes that Toga confronted her in the Battle of Jaku Hospital not out of malice, but basically to verify opinions. And while this reflection doesn't change what I think about Uraraka, it's more evidence of her emotional intelligence. Uraraka gets 4 brownie points for this, but Toga, interesting that she comes to Uraraka basically to see where she stands in society and gets told, and I'm paraphrasing here, you're a villain and you will be dealt with like one. And you think giving her processing the death of her lover, who should be in jail by the way, and being rejected by her other lover, she would just commit to villainy, basically like cross that point of no return. But apparently, I'll save you the rant because shit's about to get wiki. Just before the war begins, Aoyama has to spew propaganda to force off of one's hand, and I'm gonna brute force this opinion in real quick. They mentioned that villains are up worldwide, but outside of the prison raids, the villains haven't won once. Like, and if they were rising and dominating the world, why is All For One hiding? You know, I get Shigaraki was hurt, but you didn't commandeer his body during that time when he was recovering from getting beat the fuck up. And you also sent him out on his own to get beat the fuck up while you were on your ass pillow talking. Nonetheless, the fight begins and the league gets separated, and this kicks off with Shigaraki versus his biggest weaknesses. Alright boys, the greatest villain in recorded history versus Bakugo and the support characters. Shigaraki gets thrown into a wall but resets after getting slammed by Best Jeanist. That's not his fault. Shigaraki starts with a gap creator, putting distance between him and Best Jeanist, albeit his quirk relies on touch. Mirko closes the gap and kicks him in the face.
I'm more powerful up close.
Monoma arrives and cancels Shigaraki's quirks. He could have been there the whole time, but Shigaraki used a K like 3 times before the Monoma reveal. Shigaraki weaves Mirko's kick and arm whips her with a new quirk. Shigaraki exponentially expands and they fight off camera. When we come back, he has knocked Sun Eater out of the sky. Bakugo proceeds to blast his way to Shigaraki and starts his howitzer attack. Quirkless Shigaraki uses a shield to block the attack and grabs Bakugo. After this, he steps on Bakugo, makes some grandiose claims about himself before kicking Bakugo in the air, destroying his gauntlets, and grabbing him. Tamaki, I've been calling him Tamagichi this whole time. Tamaki shoots him with scorpion poison and quirkless Shigaraki simply spits it out. After getting rage baited, Lemillion lands a Superman punch on Shigaraki.
I'm more powerful up close.
To clarify, Shigaraki is the one that got rage baited. Despite clearly bruising his stomach, this has no effect on him at the moment. He's then sniped by a concentrated laser beam. This also has no effect on him. It's unclear if he regenerates off camera or where Monoma can't see him. Nonetheless, Bakugo unlocks Kaioken and blows Shigaraki's face off.
I'm more powerful up close.
He loads up a mini howitzer and it misses. Shigaraki explodes again, resetting the fight, injuring Bakugo. I just want to brute force in that the plot armor counter is at 4. One for spitting out poison despite being quirkless, and the second one for surviving a fucking laser window regeneration! Editor here in the plot armor counter is at 6 because he survives a howitzer with a shield despite being quirkless. I don't know how he pulls a shield out of his ass. You can debate if it's a shield or not. I think it's a shield, so the plot armor counter went to 5 because of that one. And then also, he regenerates his face without a quirk. So plot armor counter at 6. At this point, Shigaraki is locked in and he's on a bit of a run. He just demoralized his biggest threat, that being Lemillion. Shigaraki captured Mirko and pulls her prosthetic arm off, and at this point, it's looking bad. For all this shit I give Shigaraki, he's dangerous when things start rolling in his direction. Anyway, Shigaraki lectures Mirko and says the heroes didn't stand a chance. I strongly disagree, but I'll give him a pass because he was asleep during the majority of the battle. Jeanist and Edshot attempt to save Bakugo while Shigaraki is distracted by Mirko and Lemillion. As I'm wondering why he hasn't incapacitated Mirko, Shigaraki senses plot armor being applied to someone besides himself and immediately gets pissed off. Mirko breaks free, which is miraculous, and kicks Shigaraki in the chin. He attempts to grab her again, but bites her good hand off. Mirko lands and gets a bandage from Jeanist. Then after that, Mirko runs up to Shigaraki, does a head spin, kicks him in the face, and she follows this up with several kicks to the abdomen. Funny enough, this comes after Shigaraki realizes he's taking too many hits. Shigaraki is beaten to the point he becomes a mech suit. He punches Mirko across the map. He punches Tamaki to the ground. He blasts Surge out of the air. He then ignores Lemillion. Luckily, Lemillion is too distraught to be a threat, so I guess he made the right call. It's unclear why he didn't attack Jeanist or finish Mirko off. Nonetheless, Lemillion distracts Shigaraki long enough for Deku to arrive. For narrative reasons, we're going to ignore how he distracts Shigaraki. Deku kicks Shigaraki so hard he starts ragdolling. Now, Deku is getting a dedicated video, so I'll keep this brief. Deku locks in and proceeds to dog walk Shigaraki. There's no sugarcoating it. Block, grab, thrown in the air, teleport, punch the gut again, punch to the gut but harder, and one more punch to send Shigaraki flying. Overhead Superman punch. Deku hit this man so hard he gives all for one flashbacks. Shigaraki hits the earth and recoils. Yes, Deku just dribbled a nigga off the earth. Detroit Smash sending him back into the earth. Black Whip pulls Shigaraki into the air. Deku, with a punch brighter than magnesium in science class, blows a hole through Shigaraki's chest. And to be honest, Shigaraki is lucky that's all that happened to him. Shigaraki regenerates, or is revived, which is kind of odd given that whilst regenerating, Kurogiri warps clones into Monoma. This causes Shigaraki to explode. After this, Shigaraki is stun locked because, well, he just got destroyed.
I'm more powerful up close.
And Deku is stun locked due to poor stamina management. Man, they really need to teach this shit in UA. Shigaraki recovers first and attempts to nuke the stadium, but is sniped by Lady Nagant. That's plot armor for the heroes, by the way. Speaking of plot armor, Shigaraki's plot armor will be on screen. I've lost count by now. I did mention that Lady Nagant shoots him 2 or 3 times. I think she blows both of his hands off. Anyways, in case I don't get to talk about season 7 again, I just want to say, while I love Lady Nagant for all the wrong reasons, personally, I would have liked to see Lemillion save the day. I think we would have got a lot of that scenario for a multitude of reasons. One being, this would be the 2nd or 3rd time Shigaraki is foiled by someone he not only ignored, but didn't deal with when he had the chance. 2, it would have been good redemption after putting everyone in danger by losing your cool. Lemillion, he's not contributing to the battle because he's having a fucking mental breakdown. And 3, he's closer to the battle. He's not injured, and he's a character we have a rapport and a storyline with. Like, I don't understand how Lemillion is the strongest character in the arena minus Shigaraki, and he's just not involved in the fight, but we gonna get this woman that is Nagant's cool. I don't mind that she got involved, but I would have preferred Lemillion because we really got some TLC with him. Anyways, Deku tackles Shigaraki out of the cage, and they just banter for the rest of the season. Like, I don't know how to describe what they're doing for the last like 5 or 6 episodes. I think my bias showed through that, but honestly, I'm proud of myself for not ranting about Shigaraki for more than 2 minutes. Anyways, Dabi versus Todoroki, and I have 2 hot takes riding on this fight. One being Dabi is a disappointment. The second being the same take, but for Todoroki. For time reasons, I'll just give you the highlights, but outside of dialogue, you aren't missing much. Todoroki gets punched across the map, right, left, right, left, right, left, gut check. I narrated that in case someone wanted to make excuses. Left, right, you get the point. Todoroki's getting fucked up. Dabi throws Todoroki into the air. I really hope I could find a clip of Kai Cenat saying, "I'ma toss you in the air and leave you there." Dabi throws Todoroki into the air. He then punches Todoroki so hard in the chest it generates a shockwave. Todoroki survives, then he gets in a quirk jousting match with Dabi. And I feel like I'm slandering the sport of jousting, but if it's as straightforward as it looks, I think it's an accurate analogy. Anyways, very few can beat Todoroki in quirk arm wrestling, so Todoroki does a gap creator. Dabi starts giving people heat strokes, and eventually, finally, Todoroki uses his talent to gap close Dabi and freeze him with a death punch. Dabi is eventually revived out of pure hatred and teleports to Endeavor. He harasses him for a bit before starting his self-destruct sequence. To clarify, he's harassing Endeavor. Endeavor realizes there's very little he can do, so he flies Dabi into the air to minimize collateral damage. We then get a send-off for Endeavor, and it's actually really well done. It's really good. I was like, damn. On my first watch, we had like 3 episodes left. I was like, Endeavor is actually gonna die. Ray shows up, and I was surprised she had a name, but she attempts to freeze Dabi. Although it's admirable yet fruitless, I have questions about why you didn't use this ice to keep Dabi from burning himself or running away. Nonetheless, like I said, it doesn't work and it's poetic. And I'm like, wow, Dabi's about to kill his mother and his father. This is insane. It sounds hyperbolic, but I genuinely thought they were gonna die. Her ice doesn't work. Then somehow Natsu and the other sibling shows up, and all the tension left the scene. Todoroki shows up and delivers an ice nuke, saving everyone except Dabi. Although we just got pump faked out of the most emotional death, if not scene, of the series, I'm gonna keep it positive and say this was a great moment for Todoroki and Ida. I appreciate Ida for doing his part and not getting the clout of actually fighting, and like he doesn't try to like just hog the spotlight. He genuinely just does his job and keeps it pushing. I fuck with that. And for all the shit I give Todoroki, if you get in a quirk arm wrestling match with him, you're gonna lose. It's just the way it is, unless you're Bakugo. For the sake of clarity, Endeavor dying would have beaten out Night Eye, because as cool as Night Eye is, right, he was one of the MVPs of season 4. Endeavor just has more, he's just a more developed character, and we have a lot of screen time with him. And it beats Midnight because her death and discussion of her death happens completely off camera. They ain't give a fuck about Midnight. I'm gonna keep it a bean with you. Her death is so unrecognized and so under-discussed, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a group of people that thought she would make a surprise comeback in season 8. Anyways, All For One versus the World. All For One blocks the opener from Hawks while Endeavor closes the distance. All For One gets an opening and punches through Endeavor's side. As strong as All For One is, his ace attack is blocked by Jiro. Jiro, who's in base, all natural, no amps, no steroids. All For One impales Hawks and blows a hole in Jiro's ear. For narrative reasons, I want to add that there's a demographic of people who pay money for that. Jiro comes back and blasts All For One with sound waves. While he's stun locked, Hawks lands his third strike on All For One, cracking his helmet. Jiro stun locks All For One again. Dark Shadow uses this time that she bought to break All For One's life support. All For One then explodes, saving himself from decapitation and resetting the fight. Big W for Jiro and Hawks. Hawks for landing 3 strikes on the same spot in a row, and Jiro, because it's crazy that Jiro is strong enough to stun lock All For One, but is relegated to scout duty in the training battles. Anyways, fight resets. Endeavor realizes he's the #1 hero and locks in. For the record, he's down 0-1 to All For One, because I be pointing that shit out when people be beating Shigaraki up, but I don't point it out for the heroes. Despite rebuilding his helmet and blocking Endeavor's attack, the shockwave of Endeavor's punch blows the helmet off again. He then nukes All For One into the ground. All For One, the strongest character on screen, lays on the ground like a good little boy, while Brock slaps the shield, burns through it, and drags All For One through the earth, through a mountain, and the forest. If you haven't seen the last video, I can't spell Endeavor, so I write his name as Brock. So if you hear me say Brock, I mean Endeavor. All For One attempts a grab and gets his hand burned off. Burned off is an overstatement, but Brock takes All For One into the air. Funny enough, this attack he's about to do only has like a 32% sex rate? The Gooner accusations are about to go fucking crazy. Funny enough, this attack he's about to do only has like a 32% success rate if you round it down, because it's like 33.3333. Endeavor uses Providence Burn, which kills All For One. But All For One activates Ares' quirk before losing consciousness, so he's reborn naked and immediately ignores the group that just put a belt on him to rob some nameless NPC. To clarify, because that happens a little fast, All For One dies, revives himself with Ares' quirk, explains how this isn't. Toga and Dabi arrive, distracting Endeavor long enough for All For One to start running. He's attempting to team up with Shigaraki because Shigaraki obviously can't handle his own business, and to be frank, neither can All For One because Hawks confronts him. Hawks gets saved by Shiketsu, and at this point All For One realizes that this is not only taking too long, but if he wants to reunite with Shigaraki, he's gonna have to deal with the issue at hand. He shoots a massive energy ball at the heroes. This buys him just enough time to get decked by Dark Shadow. Dark Shadow wails on him for an extended period of time. It actually was a long period of time before All For One explodes again, resetting the fight. Despite getting another attempt at greatness, he has learned nothing from his previous experiences and runs away again. Giga Nigga throws a mountain at him. This misses, but it slows him down enough for Mount Lady to confront him. Eventually, he gets gang punched by every relevant character in the fight. Dark Shadow wails on him again, and despite being absolutely bullied by Tsukiyomi, All For One punches through Might Lady's hip area, and to be honest, he snipes Giga Nigga. He reveals his current form before killing Dark Shadow. Kill is an overstatement, but Dark Shadow is gone for the remainder of this fight. The blast that killed Dark Shadow also knocked Hawks out, or at least stun locked him long enough for All For One to steal Fierce Wings from him. And to be honest, it would have been badass if he didn't look like this in the same scene. And he's being stabbed through the heart with no consequences. Obviously, something like a pierced heart is irrelevant when you're constantly regenerating, but for fuck's sake! All For One spares Hawks, which says a lot about his character. That's not an insult, it just shows shows that he's more interested in power than violence. He makes a pit stop to fight All Might, and Mexu All Might puts the beats on him. All Might stun locks All For One, kicks him in the face. All For One catches a couple left rights. This goes on longer than you expect given his presumed power level, his power level being All For One's. All For One spams quirks to set off an explosion. Crazy how many times he's done this freaking season. All Might recovered and punches him in the forehead and stabbing him with a poison dart before getting thrown across the map. All Might resets with this cool scorpion looking mech and the season ends. I know that sounds kind of quick and anticlimactic, but if you ignore the dialogue between the two, the fight is rather short. Anyways, there's some things I didn't mention and I'll just summarize them for time reasons. So everyone gets an episode because this is a war, therefore everyone must contribute to get to the end goal. Spinner leads an army to attack the hospital and attempt to free Kurogiri. Soji, nicknamed Ears, explains to the army that violence isn't going to change what people think about you, and to add to this message that it makes it worse for your kind. Like if people are trying to not be discriminated against and you start doing violent, ignorant things, you, the small extremist demographic of your community, is making it worse for the whole community. Spinner is, for the sake of not completely dogpiling the League of Villains, not himself, I think he was more than capable of doing what he's tasked to do without being a scramble brain steroid monster. Spinner makes it to Kurogiri and awakes him with a hand. Spinner and President Mike are both hoed in this scene. President Mike is hoed because this is the second time he's destroyed a device meant to revive an important enemy, only for the enemy to be revived regardless. Spinner gets hoed because he puts the hand on Kurogiri's face, and Warptastic here isn't revived by the bond and friendship he has with Spinner, the League, or even Shigaraki. Nope. He's revived because All For One is omniscient and placed a device in the hand. We already explained the effect of Kurogiri being unleashed. Actually, we didn't, but you saw it. He warps Dabi to Endeavor and then Toga to Hawks, and also he warps a bunch of clones to Jump Monoma and what's his name, Aizawa, which basically bails Shigaraki out of another Shonen to defeat, or actually you can flip that and say it bails Deku out. Moving on, Shinzo, Kirishima, and Acidity attempt to stop the raid on Giga Nigga's prison. It was a valiant attempt and Acidity shows a lot of improvement, but Giga Nigga is revived nonetheless, and by the time he does something relevant, he's immune to Shizo's mind control, so I mean, there's really nothing to point out there. Then we get Toga versus Uraraka. My opinion on this fight is unchanged, that being that the fight is awful because it's not a fight, it's a de-escalation / rescue attempt, and it's redundant given what we know about Uraraka. I mean, we just had a heart-to-heart violence isn't the answer episode with Spinner and Ears, and I still feel like Uraraka deserved the clout of defeating a major villain. There's also the fact that Toga abruptly flips and or loses all character development after one conversation. Some would call that a retcon. I don't know what that word means. I'm just gonna throw it out there and you can tell me if that's true or not. She started becoming a real villain, but we get pump faked. Personally, I feel like Toga was in a position to lock in, but instead she's on the fence and chooses to be a girl with a praise kink rather than a real plot relevant villain, or in my opinion a character. But on a positive note, this is a major victory for Uraraka. Given the situation they're in, there's only two options, to be honest: survive up to 10 minutes or eliminate the source. Uraraka on 2 or 3 occasions could have taken Toga out, but chooses to defuse the situation and flip Toga into the kinkverse. Some would argue this is more heroic than having a punch up, and I hear that argument, so there are brownie points to be awarded for that. Plus 10 Uraraka. Plus 10. I've virtually covered everything in this season, so I'll jump straight into the comments. Lemillion gets his redemption, just not the one you were looking for. He was the one to help Bakugo lock in. There wasn't anything he could do to hurt Shigaraki. I strongly disagree. Hopefully I can find it, but this is a common opinion about the coffin in the sky. This is one of those things where there are several reasons why I disagree, but I have to pick which one I can explain the best. So to finally answer, there's 2 big reasons I think Lemillion could have soloed Shigaraki, and they both interlock. The first being the power scaling in the show, much less season 7, is all over the place. In this video, you watch All For One get stun locked by Jiro, beat to death by Dark Shadow. He even has his mask broken by Hawks, and there's a strong argument that Lemillion is stronger than all three of those characters, much less Jiro and Tsukuyomi. Dark Shadow has an argument, but definitely, I mean, we saw him beat the fuck out of them, so I mean, this locks into my second point. We've seen enough to think Lemillion can box with Shigaraki, especially with the circumstance he just has to buy time for Deku, which is something we've seen before. Chisaki is said to have the superior version of the K, and say what you want about Shigaraki being stronger than Chisaki, the prompt is the same. If he touches you, you die, and he can manipulate the environment to kill you or put you at a disadvantage, and Lemillion absolutely destroyed Chisaki. And when his quirk was stolen, he still absolutely wiped the floor with the guy to keep it short. We also have to add in the fact that out of everyone there, his quirk is literally perfect for battling Shigaraki with the goal of just buying time. Shigaraki can't touch Lemillion, and obviously there's ways to finesse a quirk like that, but I'm going to be honest with you, Shigaraki isn't competent enough to figure out how to defeat a character like Lemillion. By the way, that guy wanted to take shots at Dragon Ball Z. He wasn't the only one that took shots at Dragon Ball Z, but nobody pointed out Naruto, where Minato, a side character, albeit a very important one, figured out how to defeat a quirk similar but better than Lemillion's. He does that in a few minutes. Shigaraki gets a few episodes. Anyways, to wrap it up though, Lemillion definitely could have held Shigaraki off or defeated the dude himself. Lemillion trivializes Shigaraki in a few ways, so they basically just wrote it to where he doesn't fight him at all. So with that being said, he didn't get to fight All For One or Shigaraki, so I don't know why he got his quirk pack in the first place, and I don't know why he was there. So Lemillion, in my opinion, doesn't get his redemption by showing so much ass, sexy red with blush, and giving a calm down speech. I think a good redemption, or a good follow-up to him being revealed to have his quirk back after everything he went through, presumably therapy and all that shit, would have been for him to repeat what he did against Chisaki against a air quote stronger character. Also, not to mention that this just completely destroyed my perception of Lemillion, among other things. Other things like Lemillion isn't strong enough to defeat Shigaraki, yet Mirako is beating the dog shit out of Shigaraki. Yeah, I'ma save that rant for the power scaling video. Hopefully that's already out by now. It's said that Shigaraki's body is so powerful it will adapt to any situation. I heard that. I didn't take it serious at the time. Imagine having this creative mode body that morphs to your every need, and it has to transform into an armored exoskeleton because you're getting beat the hell up. Shigaraki can't regenerate because he's basically a Nomu. Two things. One, it's kind of the same issue where I get an explanation instead of a counter argument. And to be honest, the God complex in me is saying that that's because there isn't an argument. The second thing is, isn't it sad he has this quirk for 2 seasons and he doesn't improve at all? Regeneration becomes an excuse for Shigaraki to survive things that should have killed him, regardless of the quirk. Now, with hindsight, I can say All For One killed him twice by destroying his body, and it was dope. But afterwards, I'm thinking, how the fuck did Providence burn, or the laser not do the same, or much less Stars and Stripes nuclear punch? Those can be argued to be stronger or just as strong as One For All, yet he survives those attacks, but he gets destroyed by One For All, and it's not like a superior version of One For All. It's a callback to the attack that defeated the 0 Point Titan to get Deku into the thing. Yeah, see, this is why the scaling video is like 30 minutes long. What do you mean season 7 doesn't progress the story? I'll try the TLDR this. The reason I say season 6 and 7 don't progress the plot is because Shigaraki gets these new abilities, but he doesn't improve as a villain or a character, and in turn it doesn't force the heroes to improve because they already have the tools necessary to solve the problem, and at no point are their ideals or way of life challenged. To be honest, the result we get in season 8 is the same thing that's happened 2 or 3 times over at this point in the story. This guy pointed out other plot points like the Todoroki trilogy, the Mutant War, and Uraraka versus Toga, among others. And I have my nitpicks about all of these, but this is kind of where my quote that says like this should be on the resume, not the resume itself, kind of comes in. None of these really influence the timeline. The only real counter argument to that is Endeavor losing his hero career physically and politically. To clarify, the Mutant War doesn't influence the story because, well, to be honest, the message of that doesn't really leave the episode. Obviously it was a good message, but I ranted again, I'm sorry. Look, the Mutant War doesn't influence the plot because this all just arcs back to All For One getting bailed out again. Shigaraki was about about to lose the fight. Spinner saves Kurogiri. Kurogiri warps people into Aizawa, causing Shigaraki to explode, resetting the fight, leading to another season. So yes, this was a beautiful message and things of that nature, but it doesn't change the story. It doesn't force Shigaraki to be better. It doesn't force the heroes to be better, because they were good enough to stop this from happening, and it happens nonetheless because of plot reasons, which is kind of my overall point about season 6 and 7 not progressing the plot, because it all just kind of just goes in this circle. And season 8 just kind of proves this, because like the characters, the heroes, don't really change that much between season 5 and season 8, yet they solve the problem. And it's kind of like they already did this in season 6, and we just did it again in season 7 and 8. It just kind of drew out the thing, and at no point did the villains do anything to say they deserved that second chance, because they were defeated in season 3, they were defeated in season 6, and then they're defeated in season 7 and 8. It's just kind of like, yeah, I mean, we could have done this already. Just kind of my point, because we have done this already. As for the Endeavor thing, the only reason why I say his is the only real counter argument is because, well, he loses his arm and his leg, and he can't really do hero work anymore, and then he also has the fallout of being Toya's father and things of that nature, and being exposed for his abusive past, albeit we don't really see the fallout for his abusive past. Of course, he goes into hiding for a little bit, but that entire arc was about Deku being in this vigilante thing. It didn't really explore the fact that Endeavor is the victim of political assassination. So yeah, you could argue it, but this would mostly be like a theory thing, because we don't see it in the animated show. All Might's mech suit is kind of silly, and you could just mass produce them. I bring this up because someone tried to argue mass producing the mech suit isn't possible, and it was odd to me that in the same season where you see Hagakure parry attack from fused Demon Lord All For One Shigaraki, in a season where a dude spreads himself so thin he's able to sew a heart together, the thing that breaks your suspension of disbelief is a fucking mech suit. It's weird for two reasons. One, at no point did they say, you know, they couldn't, or mention how expensive or taxing it was to build a thing. And two, from a logistics standpoint, there's no way this thing costs more than an F-35, and there's over 1,000 of them. There's no way this costs more than a super carrier, and we have like 11 of them. And that's not to mention Pacific Rim had multiple Titan fighting mech suits. Endeavor dying would negate his character growth. This is one of those comments where I disagree with the outcome, not the process. He's going off the logic, if Endeavor died, it's just over. He doesn't really suffer the consequences of his actions. And with that opinion, yes, death negates his character growth, in the sense that it just ends his growth, like it ends his timeline. But yeah, there's a few flaws in that argument. To list a few, there's a demographic of people that believe death is a significant punishment. He added, and I'm paraphrasing, seeing him suffer was a part of the growth. I'd argue we've seen him grieve enough. Between his other son being kidnapped and the Toyo reveal. Third argument that continues the second is there's roughly a season between Dabi's dance and the decisive battle. So if Endeavor needed more character growth 7 seasons into the show, you think the combo for the storm would be the time to do it, not the storm itself. There's more that I can't think of off the top of my head, but the point I wanted to get across in the video is Endeavor and Dabi aren't necessary for the hellish Todoroki family finale, right? And given they don't make a noticeable appearance in season 8, they aren't really relevant to the show anymore. After watching Endeavor sit out up to 3 fights because he refuses to fight or endanger one of his sons, only to finally man up and take out the demon he spawned, is a phenomenal end to a character timeline. And the Todoroki trio of episodes would have been just as good, if not better, if it went that way. And in my opinion, if you wanted more grief and suffering from Endeavor, we get 7.25 seasons before the end of his hero timeline. They could have jammed it in, pause no diddy, anytime. Off the top of my head, I think a good time to put that grief or whatever in would have been the Vigilante Deku arc. Season 8, UI Bakugo, full power Deku, Shigaraki finally locks in, All For One does villainy things. Clap it up, that's gonna be a good one. So we kick things off by continuing the All Might All For One fight. After getting embarrassed, Izanagi All For One burns an eye to escape the poison injection and knock All Might across the map, which is how we ended season 7. For the sake of keeping my tongue straight, for the rest of this fight, I'm going to be calling All For One Zen. All Might enters Scorpion mode and starts running. Zen cuts him off and tries to hit All Might with his thrust vectoring nails. This misses, but forced All Might into the air, where he's cut off by this weird Mario Aerial quirk. After forcing All Might back into the city, Zen uses the buildings as cover and slams All Might into the ground. This turns out to be a mutual strike because All Might shoves his metal fist in Zen's mouth and freezes his face. Huh? Ice isn't lethal this arc, so All Might hits Zen with a massive light beam to the nape of the neck.
Can't stop twinkling!
I know someone who would be very proud of that. All Might traps him in a death beam for close to a minute before it overheats and explodes. Izanagi All For One aka Zen burns another eye to survive this. If you count the Endeavor fight, we're at 3 eyes already. He has 7 more before he's as trash as Danzo. Speaking of Don, we now have Gold All For One aka Kid All For One. Golden Zen is significantly more ruthless and impatient than Base All For One. Golden Zen knocks All Might across the arena, and at this point, I'm leaning forward. Golden Zen goes for the killing blow, but my boy Stain stuns him with Blood Corridor. Before getting beheaded, Zen shoots all the blood out of his body, canceling the incoming attacks. He then uses this opportunity to grab Stain and throw him across the map. He does a lot of fucking throwing. Before Stain can recover, Golden Zen punches him further into the building, killing him instantly. Holy fuck, All For One might beat the allegations. All Might attempts to save Stain, but Zen blasts him with Tri-Beam, destroying his mech suit and officially defeating All Might. Holy strawberries. The cows have come home. We might have a real villain in freaking My Hero Academia. On one hand, All For One is fucking cooking, alright? He had to burn 2 lives to do it, but he's cooking. But on the other hand, All Might didn't get to retire 50-0. Floyd, why? Yaoyorozu is posted up with a fucking For Honor Lawbringer axe, a shoulder minigun, a shield per usual, and a grenade launcher, which has nothing to do with the video, but I just want you to know that she used all this off camera! For those of y'all caught off guard by this statement, I got a few arguments about Yaoyorozu, and this screenshot has me vindicated. Never to say this, All For One cruelly drags All Might to the coffin in the sky. Speaking of coffins, All Might attempts to earn his 70 versions, but is cancelled by All For One. Albeit he fails at taking out All For One, I'd say he's saved, not from death, but because the famous joke is, they never said the virgins will be women.
Here I am! We're playing Magic the Gathering.
Air Force One attempts to save All Might and promptly gets swatted out of the sky. We get a send-off for All Might, and Zen breaks All Might's back, attempting to rip him in half. No pause, take that as you will. Bakugo saves All Might and blows All For One the fuck up. And I just want you to know, Bakugo is locked in. Zen burned his 4th eye to survive that one. Golden All For One is in a panic and attempts to merge with Shigaraki. He's cut off by Bakugo, who palms his face and nukes his ass. Funny how he's getting packed the fuck up now that he's facing someone with a quirk. That's not an insult, it's just an observation. Zen looks like he hasn't taken any damage, but he's glowing, showing that he did in fact burn another eye, so we're at 5 now. He's halfway to the garbage chair with Fraudzo. Bakugo aura forms for a minute before trickshotting Zen, which is wild given All For One's power level. At this point, Bakugo has beaten flashbacks into Zen's head, which is wild because this isn't the first time this happens to him despite his power level. Bakugo slapped this man up so bad he called Katsuki by the name of a dead man. A dead man he already killed! All For One burns his 6th eye to survive Bakugo's trick shot. All For One then uses Super Explosive Wave. This buys him just enough time to turn into a blimp. I don't know how the fuck this is justified as a superpower, but he did it. Bakugo detonates the sweat that has dripped on Zen and is also mixed with the rain, creating like this massive cluster explosion. I was gonna let it slide, but All For One burns to his 7th eye and gets in a quirk jousting match with Bakugo.
That don't work.
Bakugo literally blows Zen's body to pieces, then nukes his torso.
You shut the hell up! Get ready!
Golden All For One burns his 8th eye, and this doesn't go the way he plans because it rewound him into infancy and eventually to death. So All For One canonically dies 3 times, but I count 8 deaths so far if you include all the times he's bailed out by Izanagi. With All For One gone, it's time for the final battle. Shigaraki versus Deku. Let's fucking go. Kick to the chest. Shigaraki attempts a grab and it gets parried. Deku cuts off all Shigaraki's fingers. It doesn't matter because Shigaraki traded his fingers to steal Danger Sense from Deku. As a bonus, his fingers regenerated. Using a quirk he gained from All For One's death, Shigaraki knocks Deku across the map. Black Whip saves Deku from losing his life or quirk. After a rough landing, Deku starts suffering the side effects of gear shift. Shigaraki lands and sets a barrier and a time limit by decaying the ground behind him. Before this can reach Mount Everest or Mount Fuji, why did I say Mount? Before this can reach Mount Fuji, Deku cancels it with the air pressure from Delaware Smash. This also sends Shigaraki ragdolling. Midoriya then punches Shigaraki's arms off.
It's you!
Shigaraki regenerates the arm and weaves a kick. Before Deku can attack again, Shigaraki shoots Midoriya across the arena. Despite not taking any visible damage, Deku is physically devastated, but goes plus ultra for the final plan. Deku explodes, taking Shigaraki's other arm off, then the fight resets. Shigaraki attempts another timed nuke, but is countered by Deku. He then baits Shigaraki with a cape and punches Gear Shift into him. I can't say Deku has beaten memories into Shigaraki, because Midoriya is seeing them too. Shigaraki summons his finger suit, but it's fruitless as Deku just punches a hole through it. Again, despite rejecting the vestiges, Deku has nuked Shigaraki's body into purgatory, and at the moment he's just floating disembodied finger creeper thing. I don't know what the yeah, I'm sorry for any arachnophobes who are watching the screen. Or does that count as chirophobia? I can't believe that's the fucking thing. The brain is a weird organ. Purely cinematic, but Deku is finessing the shit out of these protruding fingers. Eventually he gets an opening and punches the vestiges into Shigaraki. All except for one. He and Flo enter Shigaraki's mind and attempt to save him. This is actually wild in hindsight. He and Flo enter Shigaraki's mind and attempt to save him. This actually works, but with Shigaraki's evil persona gone, the vestiges of All for One easily take over Shigaraki's body. This kills Shigaraki. Well, I guess it represses him or something. Look, I'm not familiar with multiple personality disorder or how it works, so for the sake of simplicity, Shigaraki is dead. Deku lost his arm, saving Shigaraki in the dream world, and to our surprise, he's lost his arms in the real world. All for One threatens to kill Deku, and before he can attempt to, he's stopped by Zero! This kicks off the inevitable power of friendship sequence, and I don't mind, because there's a case that a three-man team of everyone you're about to see could have beaten Shigaraki and All for One. Honestly, the power scaling in this Sugar Rush and Tails punch All for One across the arena. It's unclear if he still has super strength, speed, endurance, and regeneration, but either way, this is embarrassing. Oh yeah, boys, I got my energy back, let's go. Aizawa rewinds Deku with Aries Horn. Yes, Aizawa rewinds Deku with Aries Horn. It's not infinite Deku, but I'll take it. All for One turns into whatever the fuck this is, and despite how badass it looks, I knew he was cooked when he did these things. 1, you're up against the power of friendship. It is what you're cooked. 2, you made yourself larger and an easier target to hit. And 3, going kaiju has never worked for you. Yes, you stabbed Bakugo and injured Lemillion with Reed Richards' super nails, but the outcome of that is you running away. So not only has this never worked, the one and only time you actually want to fight is when you didn't do this. All for One is firebombed by Endeavor and Todoroki. This does absolutely no damage because fire is non-lethal this episode. All for One attempts a nuke and 13 absorbs it. Wait a minute, what? Orca is smacked into the dirt. All for One shoots a death beam, but it's parried by Hagakure. Yes, Invisigirl parried All for One's strongest attack. Yaoyorozu shoots a railgun at All for One. This does absolutely nothing, but this comment made me realize I missed out on so many bitches love canon jokes. All for One does some AoE attacks. Deku is bodyguarded from the damage. Ibara is in this screenshot, and there's no proof that she isn't, but it's odd that she didn't make a vine wall. Kendo obliterates an arm. I know it's an arm, but Kendo has won more fights than Shigaraki. Like, she's literally undefeated. Another crazy thing about Kendo is that her quirk is literally just big hands. I mean, she's not like in hand. Even Mineta takes out an arm, and I'm not gonna lie, All for One, that's -5 aura. How the fuck Deku knocks the kaiju out of All for One? He somehow survives this, and I'm gonna play it again. Yeah, he somehow survives this, and it buys him just enough time to watch Kurogiri die as Deku loads up the My Hero Academia Plus Ultra Superman Smash. to end all smashes. All for One actually dies this time, and the last 3 episodes are tying up loose ends and concluding a story which is fucking peak. Just to comment on one of the major events in the last few episodes, I found the conclusion of the Hellish Todoroki trilogy odd yet enjoyable. So Dabi survives his fight with Todoroki and is on life support, or basically on life support. Endeavor basically tells the family, leave the bird's nest and leave the PR nightmare to me being Endeavor. He of course apologizes and lets Dabi cuss him out. Dabi apologizes to Todoroki, which is
Shoto, I'm sorry.
As shocking as it is odd. Personally, I think all the progress they made and the grief they will have to process in this episode could have been done without having Dabi miraculously survive 2 fatal injuries. Speaking of fatal, funny enough, I say the show doesn't kill enough people, but the entire League of Villains has, well, been defeated across 2.5 seasons. Compress dies saving Shigaraki and the gang. Kurogiri dies to Bakugo. Dabi is dead, mostly. Toga, dead. I don't know how, but she's in the sky. Twice, dead. All for One, dead. Shigaraki, dead. And Spinner, the sole sentient survivor, is in prison. There's a Julio Fulio song trending on TikTok where they make memes about people dying in shows and whatnot, and I would have made the joke here, but the fact that he actually mentioned real dead people in a city I live adjacent to is insane. So out of respect for them, I'm not going to play that joke. Here we go, boys, the home stretch, season 8. Oh my gosh, boys, I've been talking for 55 minutes. All right, let's get into it. I've covered virtually everything this season, so we're just going to jump straight into the comments as of now. Why Shinzo? Watch Vigilantes. You know, when I first read this comment, I thought, I've only seen 1 season of Vigilantes. Maybe Shinzo cooks in the following seasons. Then I remember Vigilantes is a prequel, and I thought to myself, I said, why the fuck would Vigilantes make me like Shinzo? Oh! Aizawa, and I might be wrong, but my educated guess is Aizawa chooses Shinzo because the kid reminds him of himself. Point and laugh. But in all seriousness, it's hard to explain, but I'll do my best in a summarized format. As a teacher, your job is to prepare your students. As someone who's teaching students to take on dangerous tasks or dangerous endeavors like mountain climbing, policing, or just military stuff, you're heavily obligated to run a strict program, for lack of a better phrase. So when you have students with massive character flaws like Yaoyorozu, Todoroki, Bakugo, hell, even Mineta, and you do the bare minimum, if that, to prepare these kids, but you can tutor and give special attention to a kid not in your class because he reminds you of yourself, inexcusable. That would actually support my take that Aizawa is a terrible teacher based on what we see in the animated show. And that's not to mention that this kid he tutors is woefully outclassed by his peers. I'll leave it at that for now. All for One couldn't use Danger Sense on Sero because they were too weak. To give credit where it's due, I missed this. My only issue is this explains how they got close to him, but it doesn't explain what they did to him, if you get what I'm saying. This is Demon Lord All for One. I don't want to hype him up, but for the sake of proving the point, when he had control of Shigaraki's incomplete body, he freed himself from prison among other feats, right? And this version of him is undeniably more powerful. Yet, he gets slapped around by a gym bro and a dude with tape arms? And that says more about All for One than Sero and Sugar Rush. I'll put the soapbox away. The Danger Sense is a canon explanation of what happened. It's not wrong, but it's also not an excuse. All for One literally has infinite quirks, decades if not years of battle experience, and I know I've beaten this point to death, but he has the perfect Nomu. He literally has control of Shigaraki's perfect body, and this happens to him by characters who should be scaled out of relevance. Yeah, don't want to rant about it. We've already been here an hour. I think that's a good enough point. Compress isn't dead. I threw this in because it's another thing I missed. I don't really have an opinion on it though. I can't really talk myself into why he shouldn't be there, but I also can't talk myself into why he should. It's a cute cameo to a character that's been around for a while, and I think Compress is arguably one of the top 2, not 2 of the most competent characters in the League of Villains, so like it's cool he lived, but also like he's one of many characters in the show where I think he means more to the show dead than alive. Maybe if he actually died, the League of Villains would have been motivated to not get absolutely dog walked in every fight that they've had, but yeah, I will save that for the League of Villains slander video. Anyways, that wraps up all 8 seasons of the animated version of My Hero Academia. academia. Hopefully these interjections and reactions added more value to the video, and given the up and down popularity of this miniseries, I hope you saw an episode that you missed. I don't know when this video will see the light of day, but I have a few more videos to make before I put this show to bed for a while. I'm going to talk about my hero's power scaling, why Toga is the most interesting villain in the show, my top 10 characters miniseries, and the evisceration of the League of Villains. When the not so secret bonus episodes get released, I'll cover that too, and then it's on to Vigilantes and another series I want to start. But until we meet in that series or the comments, remember, if you know man, because we know we up next, sponsored by Atari, and